Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto gets imprisoned in RWBY. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by SquaredCircles and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Remnant. Falling. That was the last thing he remembered. He didn't really recall what or who made him fall, but he remembered feeling tired, exhausted. Something he hadn't felt in a long while. Now though? Well, he didn't exactly know where he was, so he couldn't answer that question. Was he angry? Not really. Was he sad? Kind of, but mostly because he was lost. Was he confused? Nothing was more true. Seriously, when did the world go pitch black? He looked around, doing his best to take what surroundings he could see. A long black road, cracked and chipped bricks laying in a strange pattern. The water, he assumed it was water, churned slowly, lightly slapping the sides of the road that was it. He couldn't see another thing in sight. A road, and only two directions to go. He sighed in distress. Was it his fate to hit every unthinkable thing in the world before he became Hokage? Chuckling lightly at his own words, he chose to go right and started walking. Fate. It reminded him of Neji. The boy was a giant block of pride and anger, that is, until Naruto beat him. After that, Neji seemed to soften, occasionally smiling with his friends, treating Hinata better than he had before, even training harder to become a better ninja. While Naruto had never told anyone, he was proud of his friend for trying to be a better person. Soon his thoughts turned to the rest of his friends. Sasuke, the arrogant prick, was his best friend. Stupid idiot had to go and run away. Luckily he turned back and helped Konoha in the battle. Sakura, his old crush, even if she never returned his feelings. The rest of Konoha 12 had become like a family to him, always there if he needed it. Guy's team, though eccentric, mildly represented some of the members, they were still close and good friends. Kakashi the man taught him how to climb a tree, yet he couldn't be happier to have the man looking out for him. The old man, through his death, Naruto found strength. He found the will to push forward, no matter what happens, because try as you might, nothing was ever certain. His feet carried him forward subconsciously, letting Naruto zone out while he was absorbed in his thoughts. Naruto. The deep archaic voice boomed in his head. What do you want, Kyuubi? This place, I've been here before. Wait, what? Why didn't you say something earlier? I could have been going in the wrong direction this whole time. In this place, there is no such thing a right or wrong. You can only keep drifting. Naruto scratched his head. Drifting? What exactly did that mean? It has been a long time since I've even seen this place, but I had to make sure before telling you. It is without a name, older than any living being knows. A pathway between worlds. Between worlds? You mean like I'm not in the elemental nations right now? I'm afraid not. Many worlds are a part of a single existence, this existence. Imagine a ball on the ground of Fire Country. Now picture a million more scattered around the entirety of the elemental nations. That is this existence. Each ball is a world and the empty space is this place. If someone were to make their way here, they could eventually find the other worlds. The blonde was quite shocked. Since he was little, he always imagined that the elemental nations were gigantic. His perspective changed when he was told that his entire world was a mere blip in the larger picture. It was unfathomable. The only problem would be finding your way back. You can be spit out anywhere in this void. Even if you knew where to go, it could take years just to reach it. Naruto stopped walking. So I'm never going home? There's a good chance you won't make it back. Your best bet would be to enter the first world you come across and hope it is the same one. You will be stuck there forever though, unless you somehow manage to find your way here again. So that's it, his home was gone. The chances were 1 in millions, not great odds, considering he only gets one chance and he knew nothing of the lottery he was forced to take part in. Angry? Yeah. Sad? Yeah. Confused? Still very much confused. So how long will it take to get to the next world? It depends on where exactly you were spit out. Could be a day or two. It could take a year. The only way to know for sure is to find the next one. He sighed. A year? He would need food, water, he still had training to do. Even if he managed to get food and water, he couldn't slack off on his training. Time is still here. You may feel like it passes like normal, but all of the worlds are completely frozen right now. If you manage to find the elemental nations, you'll appear the exact same time you disappeared. What about food and water? They are unnecessary here. The actual time that passes here is microscopic compared to that of a world. You will never grow hungry and you will never feel thirst. Well, that was convenient. It beat dying in a few days though. He continued walking, hoping that he would soon see another world. The quiet was starting to bother him. RWBY, Weiss, Blake, and Yang. All are definitely talented. Team RWBY was unofficially considered the best team of their year, barely passing their sister team, Team JNPR. They both accomplished much in their first year at Beacon, but they still were students. Students who had a lot to learn. That much was apparent when all four came back from their last class of the day, groaning and complaining. I think I pulled something in my brain. Yang cradled her head as she lay back in bed. It wasn't that bad, Yang. Wai stumbled into her bed as well. Though today did seem exhausting. I think Professor Oobleck talked too long. It broke something. Yang complained. He isn't that bad, just a little overexcited. Ruby chuckled. The other three gave the girls a deadpan look. She smiled weakly back at them. I'm just glad that it's over. Blake muttered from her top bunk, nose buried in a book. Until tomorrow. Three groans echoed out simultaneously. Can we do something fun this weekend? The blonde sighed. All we ever do is train and schoolwork. Speak for yourself. Yang glared at Weiss. Hey, I at least try to do most of it. Ruby laughed at the two arguing. She definitely loved it at Beacon. Her friends, her team, even the professors. They made the place what it was and nothing could change that. A week. A month. Forever. Naruto honestly didn't know how much time had passed. Apparently he had no need for anything. That included sleep as he hadn't even begun to feel tired. He was, however, growing tired of the journey. The only reason he kept on pushing was for the old man's sake. He didn't want to disappoint him. Absently scuffing the ground with his foot, he trudged forward with a sigh. Naruto, do you feel that? Feel what? Energy. Unlike any you can find in any given world. It makes up the doorway to each world. It is faint, but you must be close. Finally, a destination. He began walking with a renewed vigor. Maybe he would get to see his friends soon. Remember what I said. Yeah, it might not be the elemental nations. Let me at least hope, okay? Kyuubi grumbled, retreating further into his cell. Okay, so what if it wasn't the elemental nations? Where would he end up? A world covered in water, or maybe one with only animals. One with other ninja even. One that is nothing more than a desolate and barren wasteland. Nothing is certain yet, just focus on getting to the portal. Naruto didn't like the sound of that. Nothing. Would he be able to survive something like that? Regardless, he understood that he could pop out anywhere, maybe even into a lonely world. All he could do was prepare and hope for the best. He thought it would take longer to reach the portal, but here he was, staring at the swirling mass of black water. The black liquid from the ocean on one side of the road disobeyed physics, streaming upwards before falling back to its source, creating a thick curtain. So this is it. It is. All you need to do is step into the portal. Hope for Konoha. Prepare for the worst. The two almost laughed at the way Kyuubi had finished Naruto's thought. The fox was quick to growl at the comparison. Well, here goes nothing. Naruto took a step forward, falling into the portal. He disappeared, leaving the swirling black mass standing in the realm's newfound emptiness. Their weekend did not go as expected, nothing close to the sort. Professor Goodwitch had called them to her office before they could leave. They had an emergency mission to a small village near Beacon. A large Ursa had started attacking the town, and they were required to leave immediately. When they arrived, no such beast existed. The villagers mistook a big bear for an Ursa and had them called in. Since the trip to the village took nearly a day, their weekend was shot. All for a bear. This is so dumb. Yang cried out, kicking a rock along the path back to Beacon. You'd think they could tell the difference between a bear and an Ursa. I wanted to go dancing. Well, if you would stop focusing on such trivial matters, you would realize that the bear did still attack the village. They were scared. Weiss scolded the blonde. Weiss is right, Yang. Ruby interjected. I'd rather be there when we aren't needed than not be there when we aren't. Yang huffed but agreed. She would gladly save anyone that needed it, she wasn't heartless. Just for one weekend she was hoping for a nice break with the team. They didn't often get breaks from the huntress life. Maybe if they picked up the pace they could still have a few hours to do something together. Yang was about to speak when she heard a snap. She looked at her teammates with worry. They had heard it too. Turning to face Forest, they prepared themselves for a fight. The waiting was killing them as the noise grew louder. Let's just go and check it out. Yang spoke. What if there are people out there? The others agreed with her reasoning, and they slowly moved into the forest. Along with the noise, they could now hear what sounded like a voice. Panic taking hold, they started running. If someone was in trouble they had to hurry. They sped through the trees, straining their ears for any changes in the voice or, what they hoped not to hear, the roar of a grim. Damn it. The male voice caught their attention. It didn't take long for them to reach the side of the voice, and they surprised by what they saw. Trees toppled, small craters in the ground, and an angry blonde standing in the middle of it all. A small, swirling blue ball formed in his hand. He grit his teeth and pulled his hand back. Rasengan. He yelled, slamming the ball into a still-standing tree. The ball drilled through the trunk, creating a large hole in its base. Hunched over and panting, he began forming another one when he noticed 4 people staring at him. "Hello." RWBY, always the optimist, spoke up. "Are you okay?" "No," Naruto whispered. "Can you tell me where I am?" He raised his voice so they would hear him. "About a day's journey from Beacon Academy," Yang explained. "We were on our way back when heard you out here. We thought you might have been in trouble." Naruto hung his head. Definitely not the elemental nations. He had his suspicions when he came across that black beast with a white mask, but this just confirmed it. He knew quite a lot of places from his home, but Beacon Academy was never one of them. "What country is this?" The girls gave him a confused look. He didn't even know what country he was in. He must be lost. "Country? Do you mean kingdom?" Naruto raised an eyebrow twice. "We are in the kingdom of Vale." That cemented the fact. No such kingdom existed in the elemental nations. He sighed in exasperation. "Would you be able to point me towards a place that needs work? I don't have any money." He didn't like asking for help, always pushing through any obstacles by himself. However, he was in an unknown world with no money, no place to sleep, and no way of knowing when or where his next meal would come from. The best he could do was hope these girls could give him good directions. "What do you mean no money?" RWBY asked. "How did you end up out here?" "My village, it's hard to explain. I can't go back and I'm not familiar with anything outside of it. Best to keep his secret. They might attack him if they knew he was basically an alien." Well, Yang thought aloud. "You could always come back to Beacon with us." "What?" Weiss interjected. "He's not a student and non-students aren't allowed on campus without the headmaster's permission." "Weiss, he is lost." Blake finally spoke, holding off Weiss's denial of the boy accompanying them. "That's the least we could do. Professor Ozpin would be nice enough to at least point him in the right direction. He wouldn't kick him out without listening first. Plus Vale always has work available." RWBY cheered. He could get a job there. Naruto watched their interaction with some amusement. They seemed like a small family, but none of them even looked remotely alike to be related. Maybe a team? That would explain why they were out together with weapons. Speaking of, their weapons looked weird. The short girl had a block of metal. How was someone her size even able to carry that? The white-haired one had a thin sword. At least that could kill something, but it didn't look very sturdy. The quiet one had a blade that looked fairly sturdy and very sharp. So far she seemed the most equipped. Then the blonde one, arm guards. They didn't even cover much and they left her hands exposed. How would that help against anything? Also, what was with the skirts? How could you fight in that? The girls he knew never wore stuff like that. "Excuse me?" Weiss spoke loudly. Naruto raised his gaze and turned to stare at the girl. "Just what exactly were you looking at?" "Your weapons, I've never seen any like that. I'm sorry if I offended you." Damn it. He didn't want them to leave him here. He hoped that his apology would deter them from any kind of thoughts of that nature. "You like weapons too?" RWBY asked excitedly, cutting off Weiss's apology. "I love weapons. Seeing new ones is always cool, like meeting new people." Naruto nodded. He could understand that. Seeing Zabuza's sword for the first time definitely made him excited at seeing something so cool. Though he was too busy trying not to die to really care all that much at the time. "I would appreciate it if I could travel with you to Beacon." He bowed. Normally, respect wasn't something he showed that often. Everyone was a friend and he treated them like it. He really wanted to get it across that he was in need though. Without them, he could very well die in the forest before finding food or water. The girls led him out of the forest, back to the road they were on before heading back to Beacon. "So what's your name?" RWBY spoke up. 10 minutes of silence was uncomfortable, especially for the highly friendly girl. Naruto had taken to walk as far away from them as possible without seeming disrespectful. He wanted to avoid as many questions from them as possible, since his part was rather well they wouldn't understand about ninja. "Naruto Uzumaki." RWBY raised an eyebrow at his name. "That's a different kind of name. It sounds cool though." Naruto stayed silent, earning a frown from RWBY. "I'm Ruby Rose." "Yang Xiaolong." The blonde girl smiled brightly. "Why Shnee?" She spoke with an air of authority. "Lake Belladonna." He could barely hear the last one. She seemed to not like talking. RWBY continued her questioning after Blake spoke. "What kind of weapon do you have?" Naruto turned to look at the expectant girl. He flipped open a pouch on his waist and pulled out a kunai. A knife. "It's called a kunai. It's used primarily for stabbing and cutting, though you are able to throw them if you need to." He pocketed the kunai. He wasn't going to tell them about his ninjutsu as he had yet to see anything that resembled that in this world. "I am also proficient at fighting in close combat without a weapon." RWBY thought that was pretty cool. "Fighting Grim with your bare hands. Awesome. What about that blue ball?" Weiss asked. "The one you made earlier." Naruto looked at his hands before creating his signature move. The swirling mass blared to life, creating a small gust in the calm air. "Rasengan." It's used for completely tearing an opponent's insides apart. Ruby looked a bit squeamish at the thought, but hey, people do things differently all over the world. Who was she to judge him for doing that? It must be easy to beat Grimm with that. Yang smiled. She saw its destructiveness in the forest, it definitely packed a punch. Grimm? The girls looked at his confused expression. He had never heard of Grimm. You don't know what Grimm are? Ruby asked astonished. The big black creatures that have no souls. Oh those, yes, it is effective against them. Naruto continued walking, hoping that their questioning was done. When he noticed they had stopped, he turned to look back at them. Is something wrong? His tone was genuine and curious. If you don't know what Grimm are, how do you know it tears insides apart? Weiss accused him, looking fairly angry. Naruto froze, his eyes widening for a moment. Before he could say anything else, Yang stepped up. You use that on people? Her voice clearly spoke anger, but it was held back. Weiss and Ruby looked sick, Blake narrowed her eyes. Naruto started before sighing. I'm sorry. I'll leave you be. He turned to head back into the forest. So much for making it to this beacon place. They thought he was a murderer and definitely wouldn't trust him now. He never liked killing people, but sometimes it had to be done. Hold on. He turned at Yang's voice. You aren't going anywhere. We are definitely bringing you to Professor Ozpin now. He saw the four get into stances of sword. The block of metal on the short girl's back transformed into a large scythe. Very well. Do you need to tie me up? They looked confused at his rather quick surrender, but accepted it nonetheless. Blake, can you tie him up? Blake nodded, procuring rope to tie his hands together with. Wait. Naruto raised his hand, slowly reaching for his pouch. The girls became guarded again, waiting for his move. He pulled out what appeared to be a roll of thread. Don't waste your rope. This is steel wire, it will work more effectively. What? Did he just give them a better way to secure his hands? Blake approached cautiously as Naruto held out the wire. Set it down. Naruto did, back up slowly from the spool. Blake grabbed it, examining the thread before nodding, confirming it was exactly what he told them it was. She pulled a length of it out, Naruto held his hands outward for her to tie. Behind your back. You can still fight with your hands in front of you. Naruto complied, turning around and putting his hands behind his back. After Blake swiftly tied him up, she grabbed his arm and dragged him out into the middle of the road. Let's go. We should try and hurry back now. Yang spoke, glaring at the tied blonde. So much for peaceful. At least you are going to this beacon place. Hopefully this Ozpin person is willing to excuse your past in exchange for something. If not, well I suppose you'll die. At least I'll be free. Naruto sighed as Kyuubi chuckled. He really wanted to go home. Chapter 2. Beacon. Angry could not even begin to express how Yang felt about the situation. The blonde that they found was a murderer. How the hell did someone actually even consider that? She glared at the offending character for a moment before looking back at her team. Weiss still looked sick, Ruby opting to stay as far away from him as possible. Not that she blamed her. Blake was the only one that seemed not completely angry with the situation. Maybe it was because of Blake's history with the White Fang. Maybe she saw a bit of herself in the blonde, forced to do something they didn't really want to, something they knew was wrong. As far as she knew though, Blake hadn't committed murder. Her gaze turned back to Naruto, trying to figure him out. He didn't even try to fight for an escape, he just gave up. He was definitely strong if the clearing he made was anything to go by. So why didn't he fight back? She bit her lip and thought. Was this his way of paying for what he did? Did he just lose the will to go on? If you wish to speed up your progress, I can move quickly with you. Naruto spoke, startling the girl out of her thoughts. What? And give you a chance to run away. Weiss spat bitterly at him. I wouldn't run. I could have tried back when you tied me up. It was just an offer. Thanks, but no thanks. Weiss turned her head away. Growing up like she did certainly gave her many looks at political corruption and the like, but to meet someone who would carry out the dirty work for those people was another. Blood stained his hands and she wasn't comfortable with that. Ruby did her best to ignore Naruto, hoping that he would disappear. It wasn't like she had never seen death or dealt with it, she killed Grimm all of the time. However, these were people they were talking about now, people had lost their lives because of him. Possibly innocent ones. Mustering as much of her courage as she could, she decided to ask him something that had been a plague on her thoughts since they learned that information. Why? Her voice came at weak and trembling, nothing like she planned. The others looked at her, confused by her question. Why did you kill people? Naruto glanced over at her. She wasn't comfortable being around him, that much he could tell. Scared. Maybe, but it was more that she was weary of what he would try and do. Perhaps some vague answer would be best. I've done a lot of terrible things. Yes, I have killed people, but never innocent ones. They were all enemies, oppressing the weak, pushing them into slavery or worse. Others were hired killers, paid to kill anyone that popped onto their list. If you met one, you either killed or were killed. Some went even further, waging war for no reason other than power. When someone who has more power than you can imagine wants something done, the only way to stop them is through death. He sighed, putting on a weak smile. I can guarantee that I never took joy in what I did, but I did it to protect my village and my loved ones. If that's a crime then so be it, but I won't say I regret doing what I did. Shocked would be the best way to describe how RWBY felt. Next would be pity. Forced into doing horrible things, even if they were for a noble cause, must have been tough. Don't listen to him, RWBY, I'm sure he made it up to try and get you to feel sorry for him. Yang whispered. I assure you none of that was made up, Miss Xiaolong, but I can't stop you from believing what you want to. He became silent once more, calmly walking along with the girls as Blake held his arm. Said girl looked up into his face, noticing the sad smile that was etched into it. Maybe he really did have a past like hers, even if his sounded more bloody. You weren't lying? Blake asked hesitantly. Naruto shook his head. She nodded in understanding. What was your village like? He raised his head curiously at her. Why did she want to know? It depends on what time of my life you are speaking about. She didn't really know how to respond to something like that. Did the village change? Something happened that made it different perhaps. Something he caught her attention. Something happened to you. Something bad. Her eyes widened as she turned away from his gaze. How? I'm fairly good at reading people. Some people think it's a gift. He noticed her discomfort. I'm not one to press if you don't want to talk. Besides, why would you listen to a prisoner being sent to death? She turned back with a raised brow. What makes you say that? In my village, murder was not unusual because of our lifestyle, though it is not taken lightly here it seems. What did you think would happen to me once I reached Beacon? It wasn't his words that shocked her, but his smile. I could do it again after all. One life doesn't outweigh dozens. Yet you seem happy about that. I've lived long enough to see a lot of things. I have several friends, but I can see none of them anymore. There is nothing for me in this land. Perhaps my death can make up for some of the things I've done. Maybe I'll get to meet my parents finally. He began to trail off, forgetting that the four were now listening to him curiously. I can see the old man, thank him for what he's done for me, I can see Niji again and again, maybe I won't be headed where they went. He fell silent. The girls took that information at face value. They didn't want to feel sorry for him, they didn't want to. He could just be lying to try and get them to let him go. Only Blake seems genuinely curious and sad by his words. The stairs to Beacon were a pain, leaving the four girls huffing at the end of the journey. Naruto stood as calm as he was at the beginning of the walk. How he did that, they didn't know. All they knew was that they needed to get him to Ozpin. Professor Ozpin's office is at the top of Beacon Academy. Yang spoke. That's where we are headed. Naruto nodded, letting them lead him through the campus. To say they got stares and whispers would be putting it mildly. Students began to flood the corridors when word got around that Team RWBY was back and with a prisoner by the looks of it. Naruto noticed the attention and kept his head down. Words were thrown around that he had yet to hear. White Fang. Faunus. Whatever they were, they seemed to affect Blake. Her face contorted into something that was angry yet sad. Maybe that had to do with what happened in her past. Soon they reached a set of metal sliding doors. After Weiss pushed a button near the doors, they slid open. Naruto stepped inside, looking around the box with interest. What is this? He asked absently, not expecting an answer. You've never seen an elevator? Weiss spoke incredulously. Naruto chuckled. I didn't have much back home. They stayed silent for the rest of the ride. When the doors opened again, they were staring onto a large room. The view from the windows covering half of the walls confirmed they were very high up, if not at the very top of the tower. A man with silver hair was sitting behind a simple desk, talking with a taller blonde woman. They turned to look at the interruption. This meeting is private. You will need to wait to speak with the headmaster. The woman spoke, eyeing Naruto with suspicion. We're sorry Professor Goodwitch, but we needed to speak with Professor Ozpin immediately. Weiss spoke up. We found this man on our way back from our mission. After a few questions, we found out he pausing, she took a breath before continuing. He killed people. We thought it best to bring him to you. Glinda's eyes flared at the offender. She looked ready to speak her mind when Ozpin interjected. Thank you Miss Schnee. Glinda, we will continue later. It seems something important came up. He looked at Naruto. You may remove his bindings. Team RWBY looked at him like he was crazy. But profs. Now. He held his hand up. I'm sure I am more than capable of taking care of things if he does anything crazy. They sighed in acceptance. Blake moved to untie the bonds, but Naruto moved his hands away. She looked up at him, confused. I'm fine with keeping them on. She gave him a weird look before nodding and moving back to the elevator with the rest of her team and Glinda. Ozpin would tell her what happened later if it was necessary. The elevator closed, sending the group to a different floor. Naruto looked up at Ozpin, who just smiled in return. "Please, have a seat." He motioned to the chair opposite of his desk. Naruto took it, not wanting to appear rude. "Are you sure you wouldn't like your bindings removed? They can't be comfortable." Naruto nodded. "They are, but I am not looking to give anyone a reason to attack me. I assure you I won't attack you unless you act first." Naruto took a moment to think before snapping the steel wire. Ozpin raised an eyebrow. "They weren't really holding you. Why allow yourself to be tied up then?" "I didn't come here looking to fight. Breaking them in front of those four or running when they told me to go with them only would have forced their hand in attacking or reporting me. I'm sure having a known murderer on the loose would have many people out searching for me, actively or passively. This path was the one of least resistance and my best shot at not being declared a threat on sight." Ozpin nodded, understanding what the blonde was trying to convey. "What is your name?" "Naruto Uzumaki." "May I ask where you are from?" Naruto chuckled. "It depends. Do you believe in fairy tales?" Ozpin's lips quirked at that. "I've been known to believe in such things from time to time. Will I be allowed to finish my story without being immediately arrested or executed?" Ozpin nodded, settling in for the tale. "I was born in village called Konoha." It was nearly dark now, Ozpin having sat through the entire tale. To say he was intrigued would be putting it lightly. It wasn't every day you met someone from another world. Ninja. Jutsu. Bijuu. Cage. It all seemed very far-fetched, but the man had no reason not to believe him. At least not yet. "I must say, that is definitely one of the more interesting tales I've heard in my time." Naruto scratched the back of his head. "Looking back, it seems pretty ridiculous some of the things I've gone through and done. A few questions come to mind though. May I ask?" "Of course. This Madara person, you say he has the ability to move himself into a separate dimension before reappearing. Do you believe he could use that to come to Remnant?" Naruto shook his head. "From what I know of the Sharingan, it only has the ability to put him inside of a small pocket dimension specific to the user. Even if he could reach the void, let alone Remnant, he would have almost zero chance of reaching this place unless he ended up exactly where I was spit out at." Ozpin nodded. The last thing he wanted was a man like that in their world. "That's good. If possible, could you show me some techniques from your world? I am interested in seeing them compared to what we have here." "Yes, though some are highly destructive, so I will only use them if you specifically ask." "Very well. This Kyuubi you have inside of you, I believe you said he was considered a demon and the strongest one at that." The blonde sighed. "You have no worries about him breaking free. We have an agreement to work together. Honestly, we are more friends than partners at this point." He heard Kyuubi snort in the back of his mind. Mentally he rolled his eyes at the fox. "That is good. I just had to be sure." Naruto smiled. "I understand. You have students and people to protect." Ozpin nodded in appreciation for the understanding. "Your childhood." Naruto stopped smiling at the mention of it. "I would hate to bring up old memories, especially painful ones. You seem to have dealt with them fairly well at this point. If I didn't know of it, I would have never guessed that it happened. I just wanted you to know that I will always be here for anyone that needs me. You need only ask and I will listen." Naruto bowed his head in appreciation. "Thank you, sir. That brings me to my last question." He folded his hands together. "If I asked you to, would you be willing to join Beacon Academy?" Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. He was expecting jail time, possibly execution for his past. Instead he got an offer to join the academy. "Sir, with all due respect, are you sure you want someone like me at this school? I am sure the four girls have already told most of the school about my activities before coming here and I don't think that the students or the teachers would like having me around." Ozpin chuckled. "I don't judge people by what they have done, but what they prove to be. To me, you are a kid who grew up too quickly, forced to fight for freedom and your home's continued existence. If anyone could condemn that, I doubt you would want to be around that sort." Naruto thought for a moment. Would it be so bad to try and start a life here? Wasn't that what he was planning on doing anyways? He chuckled silently to himself. Going from one step away from village leader to first-year academy student. The world really didn't want him becoming Hokage, did it? "I accept. On the condition that I am not paired up with anyone. As I understand it, from what you have told me, everyone works in teams here. I'm not ready for that sort of thing, at least not until people warm up to me, if they ever do. I see no reason why we can't bend the rules a bit for your special circumstance. When you find yourself ready for a team, I'll assign you to an existing group unless a slot opens up." "Thank you." Naruto bowed his head. Ozpin nodded, staring out the window. "It is getting late. I can pay for you to stay in a hotel in Vale." "No need. I am more than capable of finding a place to sleep. He raised an eyebrow but accepted the answer. Very well. I want you to meet Glinda in front of the academy tomorrow around 6. She will show you around the school and where all of the classrooms are. Naruto nodded and stood. He walked back to the elevator, standing still for a moment. He turned to look at Ozpin, slightly embarrassed. How do these work? The silver-haired man chuckled, looking at the blonde man's plight. The terror of the elevator begins. Naruto found himself awake an hour before he had to meet with Glinda. It wasn't that he wasn't tired, but he felt something else. Terror. Excitement. Sadness. Happiness. Basically everything. He was being given a fresh start, a clean skate to work with. If he messed this up, it would be no different here than when he was young in Konoha. That was definitely something he didn't want. Staring up at the dooky blue sky, still awakening from its own nap, from the fountain bench he slept on, he couldn't help but notice it appeared like it did back home. He could almost feel himself laying on a bench in Konoha's park, relaxing the day away after the war was over. Kids played happily in the jungle gyms, laughing wildly with their friends. Parents watched, smiling at their young ones having such fun. Couples walking down the street, hand in hand as they grew closer and closer. His smile slowly left his face. But it wasn't Konoha. Nothing ever would be. Sighing, he sat up, turning his gaze upon the school. Only 59 more minutes until Glinda arrived. In surprise turn of events, he only had to wait a few more minutes before the woman showed up. She looked around for a moment before her eyes landed on him. Narrowing them, she approached swiftly. I see you are at least punctual. I was half expecting to have to track you down when 6 came. Naruto shook his head. You could have arrived here at 1 and you still would have found me. I slept here. He patted the bench to make his point. You did not rent a hotel room? I have no money. Ozpin offered to pay for it, but I refused. Besides, I've slept on worse than stone. He folded his hands together. Do you want to start now, or would you rather wait? As you said, you weren't expecting me this early. Glinda gave him a weird look. He couldn't place it. Was it distrust? No, we should start now. I'll be able to get more work done in my office than out here. He nodded, standing up and waited for her to lead him away. They began walking towards the main entrance of the school before Glinda spoke again. I do not know why Ozpin is trusting you, especially if what Team RWBY said was true, but the man is a person I trust, so I will accept his decision until you prove otherwise. Naruto nodded weakly. All I ask is a chance to prove myself. I can't really go anywhere except up from here though, can I? Glinda eyed him wearily before turning back to face the building's entrance. This is the room where you will be practicing combat training. I teach this class. Naruto nodded. It was a lot to take in, but he was sure he would manage. A few students had begun to populate the halls at this point. The tour had taken well over an hour. He was beginning to get looks again. That's the entirety of your tour. I'll trust that you can remember the rooms. Keep in mind, breakfast is at 8, lunch at noon, and always be on time for class. New student tardiness may be accepted by a few of the staff, but I won't. The blonde man nodded. Professor. He didn't want to call her Glinda since she was technically his teacher now. Yes, what is it? She tapped her scroll impatiently. Back home, I was never considered a good academic student. I thought I'd warn you beforehand. Anything practical is fine, but when it comes to history and theories I've never been able to focus properly. How many of these classes are practical? She sighed. Technically only mine is, but all of them have some parts that allow you to participate in demonstrations or tests that count as such. Most of them will be by the book assignments and essays though. Naruto hung his head. I thought so. Thank you anyways, Professor. He turned to head towards the cafeteria. Getting something to eat sounded good about now. Glinda watched his back as he retreated. He didn't seem like a cold-blooded person, in fact he acted like the exact opposite. He let her speak without interrupting, only asking questions that were actually pertinent to the subject. He even offered to delay the tour in case she wasn't ready that morning. That may have earned him a few points in her book, but he still had a long way to go. Chapter 3. First day. Breakfast was a different ordeal. When Naruto entered the giant cafeteria, he quickly moved to a corner of the room, observing how people went about their day for a few minutes. Mentally taking notes, he watched as a few people sat with a larger group, getting some hellos from them. Groups of friends. He sighed. Of course he wasn't going to fit in. He made his way to where there was a line, standing at the back for a short amount of time. It didn't take long for his turn to come, and he just grabbed a few fruits before making his way to an empty area. While walking, it seemed as though he was garnering attention. Did Team RWBY say something to the rest of them? He pushed the thought out of his mind as he sat down, absently eating. He tried to focus on what his classes would consist of. Aura studies. What exactly was that? Aura. He had never heard of such a thing, and he was sure he didn't have one. grim studies was something a bit easier. That's what those large black things were that attacked him before the girls found him. They didn't seem all that strong, but he knew he was also considered immensely powerful by his world standards. They most likely had a different version of overly powerful. He heard a small yelp from behind him. Turning to see what happened, his eyes bled red when he saw a few guys laughing at a girl who was clearly in pain. One of them was tugging on what looked to be a pair of bunny ears attached to her head. She must have been one of those Fronis that Ozpin talked about. Almost regretting what he was about to do, he stood up and marched towards the group. The cafeteria quieted, holding their breath as the strange newcomer approached the 5 people. "Look at that, what a freak." Cardin laughed. "I bet she even likes it when I pull on them." He gave a sharp tug, eliciting a cry of pain from the girl. "Please stop." Tears streamed down her face, she tried pulling away from his grip. Suddenly a hand latched onto Cardin's wrist. He looked up at the blonde that stopped him. "Excuse me? What do you think you're doing?" "I'd like to ask the same thing." Naruto grit his teeth. He couldn't stand people like this. They bullied her for something she was born with, something she had no control over. It was just like he was when younger. "She's a freak. Look at her. We need to teach them a lesson." A sharp crack was heard as Naruto clamped harder down on his wrist. Cardin let go of the girl's ear, pulling his hand back. "What the hell, man? I suggest you move along." He let his eyes turn red with Kyuubi's help. "Unless you want to meet a real animal." Cardin and his team tripped as they scurried backwards to run from the man. Naruto sighed as his eyes shifted back to blue. He looked down at the girl who was trembling and staring up at him. "I don't think they will bother you again. If they do, let me know." He turned back around, heading to his table. He felt the eyes of many on his back as he did. Honestly, he could care less if they thought of him as a brute for doing what he did to that guy. No one, not a single person had the right to judge someone else for anything out of their control. After sitting down, he looked back to his fruit, suddenly not feeling hungry anymore. He pushed it to the side and rested his head on the table. Today wasn't going great and he hadn't even gone to his first class yet. He heard a clatter next to him and looked up, surprised to see the same girl with bunny ears sitting next to him. She looked down, almost ashamed, before speaking. Would you mind if I sat with you?" Naruto shook his head. "You're free to do whatever you want to." He watched as she began to take hesitant bites of her food. "Where is your team? Shouldn't they be with you?" She dropped her fork, letting it clatter against her tray before picking it up quickly. "They sit somewhere else." Naruto turned to look around, meeting many eyes, but none worth stopping at. When he saw 3 people approaching, he figured they must have been her teammates. The girl with the sunglasses called out to them. "Velv." She paused when she heard a growl. One that came from Naruto. "If you were really her teammates, you would have at least tried to do something. Obviously you don't care about her well-being. Now leave before I do to you what I did to that boy." His eyes turned red again. The 3 stopped, looking at each other hesitantly before turning away. He noticed that their heads seemed to hang in shame. "Good, they deserved that." "You didn't have to do that." The girl spoke up. "Yes, I did. If they are your teammates, then they should act like it." Naruto let his eyes flicker back as he turned to the girl. "I'm not trying to stop them from talking with you, I just wanted to let them know that kind of behavior is something I won't tolerate." She nodded. He was the new person everyone was talking about. Apparently he came in with Team RWBY as a prisoner, but Ozpin must have let him join the academy, otherwise he wouldn't be here right now. "Thank you," she whispered. Naruto Uzumaki. "I'm Velvet Scarlatina." Naruto smiled at her. "It's nice to meet you, Miss Scarlatina." She was surprised by the way he addressed her, but she didn't say anything about it. Then she looked up at him. "Can I ask you a question?" "You may." "Are you a Fronis?" He gave her a quizzical look before she motioned to her own cheeks. "Oh, my whisker marks. No, I am not, that was just a side effect from my birth. Where I come from, there are no Fronis, just humans." She nodded, accepting the answer. "May I ask you something?" Velvet nodded. "What's it like having those ears?" She flattened them instinctively, sliding a bit further away from Naruto. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. It's just like I said, I grew up where there were no Fronis. Honestly, I think having those would be a great advantage. You can probably hear really well, right?" She nodded hesitantly. Naruto looked around, seeing that not a lot of attention was on them. He leaned in and whispered. "Want to see something cool?" She tilted her head curiously, but nodded anyways. "What would be the harm?" Naruto placed his hands together in a seal and focused. A small puff of smoke later, Velvet widened her eyes at him. He had a pair of bunny ears on top of his head. "So how do I look?" "How did you do that?" "The trick, I know. It's just an illusion, but in a situation like this it can be quite fun." His new ears twitched. Velvet covered up her mouth as she giggled at the sight. "Yeah, I didn't think bunny would work for me either." He made the seal again. This time, he had a foxtail sprouting from his backside. "That's so cool," Velvet said, reaching out to touch the tail. For an illusion, it felt fairly real. She combed her hand through the fur a few times before smiling up at Naruto. "Thanks, Naruto." He was busy trying to think of another animal when she talked to him. "Thanks for cheering me up. I needed that." "Well, that's what I do." He smiled. "Remember, if anyone starts picking on you because of your ears, let me know. I'll turn into a cat and beat them up just enough to damage their pride and dignity." She chuckled at that. "I'd pay to see that." Naruto grinned. He already liked this girl. Sure, she was a bit shy and scared when he first saw her, but 15 minutes after talking with her, she opened up a bit and started to smile. A good friend if nothing else. "I'll let you know if I plan on doing it so you can get a front row seat." Velvet smiled and nodded, returning to her food with more enjoyment. Naruto was content to wait until she finished before he heard a yell from across the room. "You." Naruto turned around to see an angry Yang stomping towards him. Behind her was an angry-looking Weiss and a scared Ruby, Blake silently hiding in the pages of her book. Yang glared daggers at the man. How did he get here? Did Ozpin let him go? As she approached, she noticed his expression become more guarded. When she was 10 feet away, he growled at her, making her stop in her tracks. "What do you need?" Unfortunately for him, they didn't see his small heroic act. They still only saw him as a heartless killer. Maybe they even thought Velvet was his next victim. "Maybe start with why you are here." "Ozpin saw fit to make me a student here. I only agreed because he believed in what I told him. If he hadn't, I would either be on the run or dead. You can trust in his opinion like Professor Goodwitch did, or you can continue to act the way you are. I couldn't care less either way." He turned around to face Velvet, completely ignoring the four behind him. Yang gawked at him, not believing he had just told her off. She narrowed her eyes. "Fine, but come sparring time, I'm going to smash your ass into the ground." She stomped off, Weiss and Ruby following immediately. Blake stood for a second longer, staring at the smiling Velvet. What was that she felt jealousy? She turned to follow her friends to their table. It couldn't be jealousy, could it? The nerve of him. Yang slammed her tray of food into the table, making John jump out of seat. Nora's orange juice got knocked over, making the girl tear up. Ren, of course, did his best to comfort her. Purah gave the girl a strange look. "What's wrong, Yang?" Purah asked. She was obviously upset, but at what? They had just arrived after the big scene, only sitting down a moment ago. "Asshole over there." She jammed a finger in the direction of Velvet's table. Purah gazed over to find a blonde sitting and chatting with the girl, surprisingly enough to see a smile on her face. "Velvet has found a friend, it seems. I'm happy for her." Purah smiled. "That friend of hers is the asshole." Frowning, she turned back to look at the two. "He does not seem like a dislikable person. That was the guy we brought in with us yesterday as a prisoner. You know, the one that's a murderer." Weiss spoke up. This got everyone's attention. "What?" Team JNPR inquired simultaneously. "Yeah." He said Ozpin made him a student. Apparently Ozpin trusts him. Weiss crossed her arms. "I can't say I exactly agree with that." Ren looked over at the blonde man in question before turning back to his meal. "If Ozpin trusts him, that's good enough for me." Nora nodded along with Ren. Ozpin wouldn't just let a dangerous person walk around the school. "How can you believe that?" Yang asked. "He killed people. People. He should be thrown in prison." "I agree with Ren." Yang turned to stare at Blake incredulously. "If Ozpin trusts him, we should at least give him a chance. If he turns out to be bad, then we can all agree he made a bad decision." She flipped a page of her book. "I think Blake's right," Ruby muttered. "Professor Ozpin always told us that what happened in the past is history, what matters is what we choose to do heading into the future. Besides, he came willingly when you told him to, Yang. He even said he knew he could be executed." Yang's jaw fell open at her little sister. "You too." I don't like what he's done, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't at least give him a chance. Everyone deserves a chance to make up for something terrible they did." Yang threw her hands in the air in anger. "I don't understand how you can't see it. He's probably here to kill students. Watch, in sparring today he'll do something dangerous. He will hurt someone bad, I guarantee it." She turned to her meal, ignoring the rest of the conversation. "I don't know." John spoke. "I think he should be given a chance. I'm all for letting someone prove they are more than what they first appear to be. I wasn't a good fighter until after I joined Beacon and got help from all you." "Exactly." Blake agreed. "I'm not saying we should forget what he has done, but we shouldn't judge him based on just one aspect of his past." She peered over her book at the pair. Velvet was laughing at something Naruto must have said. A pang ran through her chest. She frowned at the feeling. What was it? Naruto was never happier to go train in his life. The day had been a terrible excursion of note-taking and homework assignments. Not only that, but he had to catch up so his work was doubled. Training in the last class would get his mind off of those for at least a little while. He entered the classroom, finding a seat in the back away from the others. He didn't see Velvet in the class, so he had no one to sit by. The room slowly filled as the students came trickling in, eyeing him curiously as they did. Some seemed excited by the fact they had a new student to fight against. New abilities and tactics to test their skills against. Others didn't care one way or another. When the last of the students sat down, Glinda cleared her throat. As you all have seen, we have a new student in class. I hope you all have given him a good welcome to Beacon. She looked up at the boy sitting alone. Apparently they haven't. Let's begin. Today is our weekly reprise from set fights. I'll call a name randomly and you may choose your opponent. First is Yang Xiao. Naruto. She yelled, stomping down the room to the small battleground. Glinda looked surprised for a moment but soon realized what that was. Anger. The boy must have done something to make her mad. The other students got anxious as Naruto slowly walked down the stairs to the fighting area. Yang growled at his pace. Hurry your ass up. Naruto stopped and cocked his head before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. He appeared across from Yang in the ring. Is that better, Miss Xiaolong? The students not fighting whispered excitedly. What was that move he just did? Did he teleport? Was that his semblance? Please activate your scrolls to show your aura meters. Yang did immediately, her aura flashing to life on the screen behind Glinda. Naruto, I said activate your scroll. I don't have one. He said. Ozpin hasn't given me mine yet. Very well. I'll trust you can gauge your aura well enough to know when you are no longer able to fight. He still didn't know what that word aura meant, but he nodded anyways. Yang took up a fighting stance as Naruto stood with his arms crossed. You may begin. Before Glinda even finished, Yang ran head first at Naruto, cocking her arm back to let loose a punch. Before she made contact, Naruto ducked slightly, pushing her arm up, and he grabbed the clothing around her stomach. He lifted her overhead, tossing her behind himself. She hit the ground with a smack before jumping back to her feet and attacking once more. Did you see that? RWBY gasped. He dodged Yang and countered like it was nothing. The members of Team RWBY and JNPR watched in shock as Naruto merely played with the girl. Stop dodging, damn it. She pulled her hand back before firing several shots from her gauntlets. Naruto merely ducked and weaved, evading all of them. Yang growled in annoyance. Do something else. He raised an eyebrow. He didn't want to attack, he was trying to prove a point. Even given the opportunity he would assault her if he could help it, she was comrade. Though it was technically sparring, he only saw this as a way to possibly injure her, and that was not going to get her to stop hating him. He calmly reached for his pouch, drawing one of his kunai, holding it in a reverse grip. Some students leaned forward in anticipation. His weapon was a knife. Yang held up her gauntlets ready to attack. Only she couldn't. Naruto had disappeared from her sights. He wasn't in the ring anymore. She looked around, wondering where he went when she felt a tap on her shoulder. Whipping around, she saw Naruto with a kunai in her face. First death. He spoke, disappearing again. She felt a tap on her lower back. Second death. She turned angrily to find him already gone. She moved back against a wall of the arena, keeping every place he could attack her from in view. That's when she felt a sharp metal point being pressed underneath her chin. Third death. She glanced down to see him crouching in front of her. He removed the kunai, placing it back in his pouch. You leave many openings for quicker targets, and your attacks aren't as localized as they could be, but you have much potential. He turned to Glinda. Is the match over? She shook her head. Not until the 5 minutes are up or one of your auras goes into the red. He nodded. Sorry. He grabbed her shirt, lifting her off of the ground and slamming her down into it. Students and Glinda alike watched in shock and fear as Yang's aura lowered from near full to almost gone with that hit. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto picked Yang up off of the floor, wrapping an arm around her waist and throwing one over his shoulder. Does she need to visit the infirmary? No, she still has aura left. Take her to her seat. He nodded, walking back up the steps to where she was sitting. He received many looks, some scared, some filled with admiration. Ignoring them, he placed Yang in the arms of RWBY, who moved her back towards her seat. The girl was still rattled from the blow, unsure of what had exactly happened. I hope she recovers soon. He moved back to his seat as Glinda called out the next person. RWBY looked at the blonde with a little respect. Though he did beat her sister, badly she might add, he never once did anything that could be considered overly threatening. Yes, he could have killed her 3 times as he stated, but he never did. It would have been easy for him to do that and try and run, but instead he pointed out her flaws and even apologized before he hurt her. She was right about giving him a second chance. Lake sat watching the next fight, but her eyes kept flickering to the blonde. What was it that made her act like this? Yang was back in decent condition by the time class was over. When Glinda dismissed them, she immediately made a beeline for Naruto, who was walking out of the doors. She followed him, wondering where he was headed when he stopped at the fountain outside of the school's entrance. Deciding to stay back for a moment and watch him, she hid behind a pillar. He seemed tired. He was hunched over, his head hanging lowly. She was about to approach when he sat up straight and pulled out what looked like papers from one of his pouches. He then started writing, or what she assumed was writing. After a few minutes with no change, she decided to talk to him. Before she could speak though, he interrupted her. "I was wondering when you were going to come out from behind the pillar." He didn't look up as he spoke, continuing his writing. "What the hell was that back there?" she asked. "In the classroom when we fought." "You'll have to be more specific. I don't know which part of the fight you are referring to." She growled. "The whole damn thing. I didn't want to hit you." She blinked in surprise. "You obviously don't like me and I don't hold it against you. I figured that when you asked to fight me, you were trying to prove a point about me being a heartless monster or something." Yang looked embarrassed at that fact. "So I tried to not fight you. When you asked me to do something else, I showed you your weak points. Everyone has them and you can't fully get rid of them, but you can always try to make them smaller or fewer. The last hit was because I wanted to end the match. I had no intention of doing that from the beginning, and since you seem to be a prideful person, I didn't want to just dodge you the rest of the match. Being outclassed would hurt less than never being able to hit someone that didn't even try and fight you." Yang stared at him as he continued writing. He was being nice. "I didn't ask for you to go easy on me. I know you didn't, but hurting you excessively would have been stupid. It may have shown some of my talent, but it could have also made people scared." Yang opened her mouth to speak, but Naruto continued before she could. "I'm out of my comfort zone, I've never been in a place like this before and I have no one here to rely on if I need it. I just tried to show you I wasn't as bad as you first thought, but that didn't work apparently. I'd appreciate it if I could get back to my work now." When he finished, only the scratching of his pen could be heard. Yang shuffled awkwardly as what he said flowed through her. "Why are you out here?" That was really the only thing she was comfortable with asking right now. "It's quiet. I like the view." He looked out at the setting sun. "It kind of reminds me of home." Yang looked down at the blonde as he smiled softly. He turned back to work soon after, scribbling away. She looked back at Beacon before turning to him. "You could always come back to Team RWBY's dorm." Naruto paused for a moment before continuing writing. "I don't think that would be appropriate. I am a man and there are 4 ladies that live there." "Not for that, you idiot." Her face tinted at his reasoning. "To do your work. It can't be comfortable sitting out here. Thanks for the offer, but I'll pass. You might want to get back though, it looks like it's going to storm tonight." She looked out at the horizon, spotting a few dark gray clouds. "Fine. Good." He made a shooing motion with his free hand. "Now go." Yang glared at him for a moment before it faded. She turned around and walked back to her dorm. It was his choice after all. She hated to admit it, but maybe she was wrong, maybe he wasn't as bad as she first thought he was. Chapter 4. Mission. Naruto was envious of the teams. Able to stay in a place with a roof. The storm turned out to be nothing more than a decent rain, but it still was annoying. He packed up his things before heading back inside the school, en route to Ozpin's office. The man would either give him a dorm room or give him a mission to make money. Damn weather. Only one rainy day and he was already cursing the sky. "You must have grown weak. You used to be able to sleep through snowstorms as long as my chakra kept you relatively warm, now a little water angers you? You're worse than when Matatabi was young." "RWBY, I know that. It's just annoying is all." Fine, be like that." He disappeared from Naruto's thoughts, letting him finish walking to the elevator. The doors slid shut behind him as he rode the metal cage to the top floor. He stepped out into the headmaster's office, glad he was actually here. The blonde figured he might have been gone at such a late hour. "Ah, Naruto. What can I do for you?" The man nodded in greeting as he continued sorting papers. "Give me a dorm room." Ozpin looked up from his work. "A dorm room? Well, I'm afraid those are reserved for teams only." "Then give me a mission that pays well so I can rent a place." The man shook his head. "Students are not allowed outside of the school grounds except for missions and during breaks and vacations." Naruto narrowed his eyes at the man. "So I am to sleep outside for the rest of the foreseeable future?" "Perhaps." Naruto grit his teeth. "Why don't you take a mission since you are so eager and we can talk when we come back? After that you can show me those skills I have been wanting to see." The blonde reluctantly nodded. It wasn't like he had anything else to go off of and at least a mission would give him a good excuse for getting wet. "Excellent. I have an D rank that will fit you nicely." He handed over a small silver object. "That's your scroll, I meant to give it to Glinda this morning to give to you, but I must have forgotten. Your mission will appear on there." Complete the task and earn the reward, fairly similar to your mission's work I believe. Naruto nodded. Yes. Thank you, I'll be heading out now. He turned swiftly, leaving the office. Ozpin watched as he disappeared, smiling to himself. Naruto rushed off to the front of the school, ready to leave. He pulled out the scroll and opened it. It was definitely different than anything he had ever seen in Konoha. Hello. The scroll talked, making Naruto stumble, almost falling over in surprise. This scroll has never been activated. Would you like to activate it now? Yes. Naruto wasn't sure if speaking to it would work, but he needed to get it working so he could do this mission. Thank you, your scroll will activate momentarily. He waited a few minutes before he heard a bell. Please enter your personal information below so you can be identified. He looked down at the small page of requirements. Name, birth date, blood type. It seemed like normal stuff. He poked the name slot and a jumble of letters appeared on screen. He hesitantly pushed one and saw that it appeared in the bar next to where his name should go. A few minutes and grueling backspaces later, he managed to complete what was needed. He clicked the confirm button only to be brought to another page. Naruto hung his head. He really didn't know if he could do another one. Please activate your aura and place both hands on the scroll. It will take a few moments to gauge your aura level. He raised an eyebrow. There was that word again. He should have asked Ozpin while he was in his office, but it was kind of late now. He placed his hands on the side of the scroll and waited. Please activate your aura and place both hands, Naruto groaned. I don't know what aura is. He yelled at the scroll. The voice suddenly cut off. Aura is the physical representation of one's soul. It is used to heal minor wounds and protect the body during combat. All living things have aura. Naruto cocked his head. It sounded similar to chakra. Could he use his chakra? Please activate your. He channeled chakra to his hands as he gripped the scroll tightly. The voice stopped. A few seconds later it resumed with its cheery tone. Your aura level had been gauged. Thank you for activating the scroll. Would you like a tutorial on how to use a scroll? Yes. The stupid thing began rambling, bringing up several screens and highlighting the parts it was mentioning. Naruto thought his killing days were over, but the scroll voice had certainly made him rethink that option. After an hour-long session spent growling and yelling at his scroll, the voice finally quit talking. He sighed in relief. Now he just had to find his mission somewhere. His eyes scanned the screen until they found the school symbol. He pressed on it, hoping to find what he wanted there. If it was about the school it should at least be close. A mission board appeared in front of his face, and he smiled. This was definitely the right path. It took a bit, but he finally found his assigned missions and saw a single one. He tapped it and it opened, revealing the mission's details and notes. Along with them was estimated time spent on the mission, the grade, and the payment. Line. Was that this world's money? He'd ask Ozpin about it when he got back. Luckily for him, the scroll had a map of Vale in it. He would have spent hours searching the city for the place he was looking for. Apparently a few Grimm had started showing up near the edge of the city. It was his job to look into it and eliminate the Grimm if he came across them. Seemed simple enough. Now he just needed to find the exact people that sighted the monsters. He jumped across rooftops, scanning the area for the bakery where said people were supposed to be. The ranks again. I thought you were done with these after you proved yourself. Only Ozpin knows what I am capable of, and that's only through my exploits. I have yet to show him any skills. This is probably a test. It would be best to just finish this as quickly as possible and head back. Naruto landed on a rooftop, turning to his right. This was the place. He hopped down, startling a few passerbys with a sudden entrance. Opening the door, he entered the shop. The smell hit him immediately. It was definitely a place he wouldn't mind spending time at. Somehow it reminded him of Ichiraku's, quiet, cozy, and full of good food. Excuse me, is anyone here? He called out. He heard a clatter from the back and soon after a young man rushed out to the counter. I'm sorry. We are short-handed today. He smiled at Naruto. How may I help you? I was sent about the Grimm. His smile fell as the man nodded. I see. I can show you where they were at if that will help. Naruto nodded, letting the man lead him out of the shop. After the quick explanation, he thanked the man before rushing outside of Vale's border into the woods beyond. It wasn't much to go on, just that a few have been seen in this area. No direction towards where they went, no idea on how many there were, not even what kind of Grimm. Sighing, he pushed on. Hopefully it wouldn't take too long, the rain wasn't doing any good for his only set of clothes. Putting his hands together, he called out the familiar technique used in many of his battles. Shadow Clone Jutsu. A dozen clones burst onto the scene next to him. Alright, we're looking for Grimm. Just pop when you find any. They all nodded, running in different directions. Naruto continued straight into the forest. Not long after, he felt the memories of a dispelled clone come flooding back. After correcting his course, he dispelled the others. Before he reached the place his clone saw them, he could sense them. It was faint, and his sensory skills weren't the greatest with unfamiliar targets, but as he drew closer, he recognized them as similar to the first Grimm he encountered. Sitting in their dorm room, Team RWBY played a board game, finding some time to spend with each other outside of class. It was getting late and the game was drawing to a close. "I wonder how Naruto's doing?" Ruby asked aloud. She hadn't seen the man since their last class together. "Do you know Yang?" "At the fountain." She spoke absently. "He was doing homework when I left." "Speaking of, what exactly did you two talk about? I didn't think you liked him that much, if at all." Weiss questioned the blonde girl. Stuff. Stuff. Stuff." Blake looked up from her hand to watch Yang's expression. It didn't seem like her smile was her normal one, but it was still a happy one. "What did he say?" Weiss tried to pry once again. "Stuff." "Will you stop avoiding the question?" "Nope. Ask him the next time you see him." Yang smiled at the glaring heiress. "It wasn't anything really special. I just asked about the fight and he explained it to me." "He was pretty cool, wasn't he?" Ruby sighed. "He kicked your butt, sis." "I know that, no need to remind me." Yang stuck her tongue out at her sister. "So do you not hate him anymore?" Ruby inquired. No. She didn't hate him. After he explained the fight to her, she understood that he really wasn't as heartless as she first thought. She still wasn't sure if what he said was completely true about him just trying to fit in, but for now she was willing to give him the chance everyone else was going to give him. "What brought on the change?" Weiss asked. "He explained some stuff to me." The heiress groaned in exasperation. While Yang was normally the sharing type, she didn't feel right telling them what Naruto said. He would tell them all eventually, so she had no need to. "Blake, you've been quiet." Weiss noticed. "More quiet than usual lately. Is something wrong?" No. She wasn't lying, but she wasn't exactly sure if what was happening could be considered a problem right now. There was something about him that made her feel weird. She was jealous when she saw him with Velvet and she felt sympathy when they first brought him to Beacon, but she didn't know what that meant. Not yet at least. "You know it's not good to keep feelings bottled up," Ruby told her. "It makes things easier if you tell others." Blake nodded. While Ruby may be correct, she wasn't ready to tell anyone about what she felt just yet. That could wait until she could ask Naruto a few questions. Maybe then she could understand her own feelings about the blonde. The cave was dark. It seemed obvious to say, but he couldn't see more than a few feet inside. This was where the clone saw one of those wolf Grimm walking inside. He could only assume this was a nest of sorts. He made a shadow clone to scout out the inside. Even if he was prepared, all it took was one blindsided hit to put anyone out of commission. While waiting for the clone to report, he leaned against the cave entrance. "Something is bothering you?" "How could you tell?" His words were dripping with sarcasm. "Don't take that tone with me, you know as well as I do how. Now are you going to whine about it or are you going to tell me so you can stop moping?" "I'm not moping." The fox snorted at his declaration. "Your mind begs to differ." The blonde was silent for a minute, his thoughts drifting towards Beacon. "Do you think I made the right choice?" "Concerning?" "Letting myself be led to Beacon. It wasn't necessary, but running away didn't seem like the right thing to do." "Only time will tell. It isn't like you to worry about things like that. Push through as you normally do. Eventually it will work out. Do you think you made it this far by planning every step of everything you have ever done?" "No, but I'm not doing life or death missions right now. I'm not in the middle of a world-changing war. This place is peaceful. Only these Grimm seem to be a problem. Every place has corruption and deceit, no matter how hard they may try not to. Just because you haven't found the problem doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Worry about it when it arrives. For now, kill those creatures and get back to that school. I don't want to hear any more whining about the rain." Naruto shook his head at the fox as he retreated further into the seal. Whether or not he would admit it, Kyuubi seemed to know how to get his mind off of things without being overly caring. It was an endearing trait, one he knew had helped him before. He felt his clone disperse and stood up straight. 5 of those wolves at the back of the cave. He smiled as he walked past the shadowy entrance. Sounded easy enough. "Is it about John?" Ruby asked impatiently. While they agreed to let Blake deal with her feelings at her own pace, Ruby wasn't entirely ready to let it go. She had been asking about her problem for the past 20 minutes, their game long since over, as they lay in their beds. "Why would it be about John?" "I don't know, but since it's not about anyone else we know, it must be him." Blake rolled her eyes. She knew Ruby meant well, but she wasn't just going to give in, even if she did correctly guess what her problem was. "Fine, if it's not John, then what is it? Is it because we haven't had much team training recently?" "No Ruby, it's not that." "Ruby, let Blake be." Weiss groaned from her bed. "She'll tell us when she is ready. Besides, it's past 11 and I'm tying to sleep." Blame nodded in appreciation to her teammate as Ruby pouted. Fine. Blake kept on reading, despite Weiss noting the late hour. She couldn't sleep anyways. Yang was already snoring away above her. Without the distraction of Ruby she could finally get back into her reading. The story was just finishing up too, the main protagonist having just saved his love interest from the villain. The man held her close as he proclaimed his love for her as she thanked him for rescuing her. Her ears twitched. While she loved reading these stories, she couldn't help but wonder if that would be how her romantic life would end up. Her masked hero rescuing her from the bad guys and proclaiming his love for her. She doubted it. Honestly, she had never really given any thought to her romantic partner, or lack thereof. She had been more focused on training to even notice if any guys were interested. Maybe there wasn't even a guy out there for her. Maybe she would end up living alone, living out her days as one of those crazy car ladies. She smirked at the thought. Her gaze turned from her book to her teammates. Hopefully they would at least find someone to love them like the characters in her story. Yang awoke with a yawn. She turned, bleary-eyed, around the room to see her teammates moving around and getting dressed. Do we have a mission or something? She yawned again, pulling herself into a sitting position. I thought we didn't have morning classes today. We don't, but Professor Ozpin called us to his office. Weiss spoke as she checked her rapier. It might be a mission, so we are preparing for it. After rubbing her eyes a few times, she managed to drag herself to the bathroom for a shower. Do you think it's a mission? Ruby asked the other two still present. I don't know, but we wouldn't be going to Ozpin's office unless it was important. Weiss stated. That should do it. She finished examining her weapon. A knock at their door echoed throughout their room. Blake went to open it, surprised to see all of Team JNPR standing there. Hey Blake. John smiled. Sorry that it's so early, but Ozpin called us to his office so we might be late to the training session we planned this morning. That's okay. She let them into the room. We were called there as well. Huh. John scratched his chin. Wonder what for. They sat quietly and waited for Yang to finish so they could leave. I'm ready guys, she exited the bathroom to see 4 new people in the dorm. Is this an intervention? Ruby giggled at her sister. No Yang, they got called to the office as well. We were just waiting for you. Yang raised an eyebrow, but didn't say anything. She grabbed her gauntlets before following the other 7 out of the dorm. Thank you all for coming. Ozpin greeted the 2 teams as they stood in front of his desk. It's no problem, Professor Ozpin. Ruby smiled. What did you need from us? I wanted to speak with you all about Naruto Uzumaki. Tension filled the room at the mention of his name. Did he really do what they thought he might? Was he on the run now? Were they supposed to go and track him down? It seems as though Team RWBY has let slip to Team JNPR about his past activities. They understood what he meant. While they never spoke to anyone else about it, they told their closest friends. I want you to know, while it is nice to see you don't keep things from your friends, spreading this information to anyone else is something I would highly discourage. The 2 teams looked confused. What do you mean, sir? Purah spoke. Naruto isn't a bad person. I won't say anything that isn't mine to say, but you shouldn't judge him based on just what you know. Team RWBY nodded, having already discussed this themselves. Team JNPR never really thought to ostracize him in the first place, so that wasn't a problem. What should we do then? Blake asked. Ozpin smiled. Do whatever it is you feel is right. You need not be his friend, but I think he would appreciate it, even if he wouldn't say as much. From what he told me, he hasn't lived the best of lives, and he did everything he has with a purpose. Treat him like any other student. In time you may find that he will surprise you. Naruto was an enigma to them. They knew his name and little else, but he never once tried to actively hide anything. What little they did ask him, he answered. Truthfully or not, they didn't know, but from what Ozpin had said, maybe their first distrust was wrong, as they had already found out. Naruto stepped back into Beacon earlier that night. The Grim put up much more of a fight than he was expecting, but he cleared the nest in the end. The baker had thanked him for his troubles and had given Naruto a small box of sweets as a way of showing his appreciation. He held the box in his hand as he walked into the quiet building, heading towards the familiar elevator to see Ozpin. You are back sooner than expected. The voice made Naruto stop. He turned to see Ozpin approaching him from across the hall. Did you come back for directions? I found and cleared the Grim nest. The mission is completed. Ozpin raised an eyebrow. That was rather fast. How did you manage to get to the outskirts of Vale so quickly without a bullhead? I ran. The simplicity of the statement almost made Ozpin laugh. I see. I suppose congratulations for a quick and successfully completed mission are in order. You'll receive your pay tomorrow morning unless you need it tonight for some reason. Naruto shook his head. Very well. As for your living situation, I recently found that dorms are for students, not teams. In light of that, I made sure you were assigned one. Naruto grit his teeth. You didn't just find that out, did you? Forgive me, my mind must be slipping. Age does do that to a person. Naruto sighed as Ozpin smiled. Come, I'll show you where you'll be staying. Chapter 5. Learning. As they left the office, Team RWBY and JNPR had a lot to talk about. So what are we supposed to do now? Ruby asked the small group. Get to know him. Blake spoke. Try to at the very least. Agreed. Ren interjected. Having another ally and making another friend are never bad things. Ozpin seems to think this is a good idea and I plan to go along with it. You think he likes pancakes? Nora wondered excitedly. Of course he does, who doesn't like pancakes? Ren nodded in agreement. No, I get that, but how? Yang asked. He doesn't seem like the most approachable person in the world. He took to Velvet right away, didn't he? Per explained. She has always been shy and reserved when not around her own team. If she can speak with him, we can too. Yeah. Like Blake said yesterday, he deserves a chance. John added. I suppose it won't kill us to try. Y spoke quietly. Unbeknownst to them, a blonde was sticking to the ceiling of the hallway, listening to their conversation. He saw them approaching and quickly hid himself. While he didn't have a problems with them, he didn't want a confrontation right now. After hearing them speak though, he didn't see it as a problem. Maybe he would search one of them out after seeing Ozpin. They passed slowly, unaware of his presence. When he was sure they were out of earshot, he dropped to the ground, startling a pair of students that happened to be walking by. He gave them an apologetic smile before moving towards the elevator. You're here early. Ozpin commented as Naruto appeared via elevator. I expected you in later. I've been up for a while, I just decided some morning training was in order before coming to see you. Ozpin nodded. Well, I have your pay as promised. He set down a small stack of plastic cards. Naruto grabbed them and looked them over curiously. I take it you haven't learned anything of lean since your arrival either. Naruto shook his head. No. We use Ryo where I was from. Paper bills with numbers showing their worth. Small coins were used for fragments of the smallest bill. Interesting. Ozpin pondered the concept for a moment before looking back at the blonde. Lean has no other form, just these cards. We have green, blue, red, yellow, purple, and orange cards. They are worth 1, 5, 10, 20, 50, and 100 lean respectively. So this he examined the 4 purple cards. Is 200 lean. Correct. That's fairly average as far as a D rank mission is concerned. Since the students take 1 or 2 missions a week in their first year, that is usually sufficient to keep them in anything they want, since food and board is already taken care of by the school. Higher ranked missions will pay more obviously, but there are less of them and the more experienced usually take them. I see, so why send me on a D rank? A test of sorts. I knew you were more than capable of completing it, but I was curious as to how fast you could, as well as if you would resort to, as you put it before, your more destructive skills for something like this. Naruto nodded at the fair assessment. If that was a D rank, I believe I could complete B, possibly A ranks, with only minor problems at most. Be that as it may, Ozpin sipped from his coffee mug. I still have yet to see any of your skills to judge your level from. We can do that this morning if you have no other plans. I have none. Naruto agreed. Where will I be showing you my skills? Outside of the school. If what you said is true, then I don't think being inside of the school would be best for such a demonstration. Naruto nodded further. He was right about that. Naruto tended to break things when training. Naruto, Ozpin, and Glinda stood a decent distance from the school. They were ferried out by Bullhead, as Ozpin and Glinda weren't keen on walking the distance. The area was mostly clear, a few small trees and rock outcroppings dotting the location. Alright, you may begin when you are ready. Ozpin nodded to Naruto. Well, what do you want to see? I have many offensive and a few defensive skills. He wasn't exactly going to go all out and show everything. Certain things should be kept secret, especially some of his more destructive techniques. Offensive would be fine for now. Glinda had her scroll open, ready to take note of what he would do. Naruto nodded. He disappeared in a swirl of leaves, appearing 100 feet away. He disappeared again, returning to his original location. Interesting, I didn't see you move. Ozpin noted. It's short-range teleportation essentially. That was about the limit for what I could do without possibly ending up inside of something. Naruto placed his hands together in a cross seal. Shadow clone technique. Several copies of himself burst into existence. Glinda raised an eyebrow. Is that an illusion? No, they are tangible copies of myself. I use them to help me fight. She nodded, jotting down a few notes. So you can become a team of fighters without requiring anyone else to help you? Yes. Ozpin nodded, deep in thought as Naruto continued. Naruto placed his hands together. He was shrouded by a puff of smoke. When it cleared, it revealed, to their surprise, Glinda. What exactly is that? Glinda pointed. It's an illusion. I use so much energy doing it that the illusion is tangible, so I essentially am the person or object I transform into. He spoke in an imitation of Glinda's voice, shocking her even further before he released the transformation. Well, that is certainly impressive. Ozpin stated. Can you transform into anyone, or do you need line of sight? Anyone or anything I have seen or can imagine. I could become a frog or a rock if I really wanted to. The blonde man held out his hand, forming the familiar swirling blue ball. This is a Rasengan. It's used for grinding and tearing a target, usually meant to incapacitate rather than kill, though it can be used to do so. Can you show us its capabilities? Naruto nodded, marching up to a small tree he was near. He thrust the Rasengan into its base, tearing through the tree. As the tree toppled, he released the technique. Impressive. Would you move on to offensive abilities? Ozpin was definitely interested in seeing his offensive capabilities if that was what he considered defensive. Naruto nodded, he formed a few rapid hand seals before clapping his hands together. Wind bomb. The resulting clap produced a shockwave of air centered on the teen. The two felt the effects of it, doing their best to stay standing as their clothing flapped wildly. Naruto formed another set of hand seals after the wind died down. Wind dragon. The air in front of him began to twist and mold, becoming visible. Soon after, a 30-foot dragon hovered in front of him, roaring as it crashed into the ground. The resulting blast sent up a large cloud of dirt and dust. When the smoke cleared, they could see a small crater had been formed. Well, that was unexpected. Glinda tapped a bit on her scroll before turning expectantly back to the blonde. That's really it. I have a few more wind techniques, but they are simply variation of what you have already seen. The rest of my skills are too destructive for an audience. I would request that you at least show one. Ozpin spoke up. We can move as far away as you seem necessary. Naruto sighed begrudgingly. Very well. Take the flying ship about half a mile away. The two looked confused at the rather large distance, but agreed. After a few minutes, they sat in the bullhead, looking out at the dot that Naruto was. Do you really think this distance was necessary? Glinda asked Ozpin. Better to be safe than sorry. He sipped from his mug, looking intently down at the speck, awaiting his showing. Not long after, they saw a swirling ball appear next to it. Isn't that the same skill he showed us earlier? She soon swallowed her words as the ball grew massively, what looked like spikes swirling around it. Naruto ran for a short distance before releasing the ball, it screeched forward, colliding with the tree line at the edge of the clearing. To say they were shocked would be an understatement. The resulting explosion could be felt even from their distance, shaking the bullhead. They couldn't imagine being that close to that scale of destruction. Once the smoke cleared, they approached the new lake that Vale had gained, setting down near its edge. Naruto approached the pair looking guilty. I'm sorry for the destruction. It's quite alright. Ozpin chuckled. Maybe we can fill it and have a nice swimming spot for the summer. Naruto smiled at the joke before he dropped it. I believe I have shown you enough to gauge my skill level. I think the rest of my skills would be obsolete at this point. If you have more skills, you should. Linda. Ozpin interrupted the woman. He does not need to show us everything. Besides, he knows very little of us and he was kind enough to show us everything he had. In his position, I would be reluctant to show more than necessary as well. Glinda sighed, nodding in agreement. Naruto boarded the bullhead and it took off, heading back to the school. As a hunter, you can start doing A rank missions, maybe even S rank ones. Ozpin stated. As the headmaster, I can't allow you to take anything above A rank until you are more experienced with the way our missions work. S rank missions are very delicate, taking long time to take with an always present chance for death. Naruto nodded, agreeing with the assessment. That being said, the academy isn't the place for you. Naruto gave him an inquisitive look. You can't learn anything from us that would benefit you other than possible fighting styles and weapons you would encounter. I believe something unorthodox is in order. What would that be? Glinda glanced curiously between the two men. Make him a second crow. A second what? Naruto asked. Crow is a hunter that is affiliated with the school. While he technically isn't a part of Beacon, he still comes by and does missions for me. I think you would be best in that aspect. You already expressed signs of rather working alone than with partners, and as most graduates do work alone or with a single trusted companion, you would be a perfect candidate. Linda stared on in disbelief. Making a kid do what Crow did. The man, while she didn't like him much, was a very talented hunter, years of experience under his belt. Even he had trouble on some missions, brushing close to death on more than one occasion. Do you trust me to be out alone? Is this another test? Naruto had his suspicions about the offer, but he admitted it was what he would be looking for. He'd basically be like a hunter nin from Konoha, only now he was just a hunter. I see no reason why not. You haven't displayed any tendency to leave, nor have you been dishonest with me. I have a habit of trust those who trust me. If you are sure about letting me do this, then I'll accept. Naruto spoke. Would I still be allowed to live at Beacon? We've already bent the rules once or twice, I see why we can't again. As long as you are willing to accept mission when they arise, you may continue to stay at Beacon. Perhaps in your free time you could help a few of the students. From what I understand, Miss Xiaolong had taken your words to heart. Her training this morning was very different than that of her normal routine. Naruto was surprised by that. He did give her advice he believed would help her, but he never expected her to take it to actually do anything about it. Perhaps her attitude towards him had changed. Team RWBY stood outside of their dorm, getting ready to head to lunch with Team JNPR. They had yet to see Naruto, so they just resumed their daily activities. After lunch they would begin their afternoon classes like normal. I wonder where he is? RWBY inquired. I'm sure he's hiding around here somewhere. Besides, we should see him at lunch and in class. Weiss explained. He still has to attend classes, especially considering how far behind he is. As it turned out, he wasn't at lunch. They weren't bothered by it though, he would show in class afterwards. Only he didn't. Maybe he was just late. He could have gone to different room by mistake. When they were dismissed they knew he was a no-show. The next class. No luck there either. By the time Glinda's class came around, they were a mixture of angry and worried. He couldn't just be missing class on his second day here, but what would cause him to miss class in the first place? They entered the classroom, sitting in their seats and waiting for Glinda to arrive. Normally she was already in the classroom waiting for them. Did something happen to her too? Not long after, said teacher walked into class with another person, both of them discussing something quietly. Everyone looked in surprise as it was Naruto. They continued to the front of the class together, earning a few confused looks. After a minute they finished, Glinda turning to face the class. My apologies, but I had to step out for a few minutes. As you probably noticed, Naruto is no longer sitting with you all. A few nods were shared throughout the room. He is no longer a student here, so he will not be in class with you anymore. What? A few people yelled, whispers flying throughout the room. Please quiet down. Glinda did her best to ignore the outburst. He is no longer a student because he is a fully fledged hunter. What? This got everyone yelling. How come he doesn't have to sit through class anymore? He is far above the skill level of the first years. He has no need to be a student. For the foreseeable future, he will be sitting in to assist me in some of your sparring matches. She glanced at Naruto. Whether that be through observation or a hands-on approach is up to him. More than a few students gulped nervously at the thought of fighting the blonde. They all saw what he did to Yang, and she was one of the best fighters in the class, in the year even. Now that you know that, we can begin. That class was brutal to say the least. Naruto hadn't stepped in at all, surprisingly enough, but his remark certain stung as much as punch. They were used to Good Witch correcting them and giving them pointers, but Naruto was ruthless. Not even Purah escaped his scrutiny. That was truly a shock for the girl, but she appreciated it. For once she wasn't invincible, she was just a student. He pointed out what could be corrected, and she was thankful. Class ended with the students all rushing to leave, all except Team RWBY and JNPR. They stayed behind to wait for Naruto. After all, since this was their last class, what better time to start getting to know him than right away? So how does it feel being a teacher? John asked. He was a little downcast after his assessment. Naruto spent the most time critiquing him. It made him feel worthless. Not exactly worthless, but he certainly needed much improvement. It's weird. Though I'm not technically a teacher either. I just agreed to help Glinda whenever I felt like dropping in. For the most part I'm just a hunter being sent on missions. I'm always here for advice if you need it though. They walked quietly through the halls before Naruto stopped. Where are you all heading? We were just following you, Professor. RWBY grinned up at him. Naruto rolled his eyes. I'm heading back to my dorm for a quick meal before I go and train some more. Go have fun or whatever you do in your free time. What if we want to spend time with you? Yang asked innocently. Then I'd say beat it before I beat you again, Miss Xiaolong. Yang glared at him. What did you say? Nothing. That's what I thought you said. She crossed her arms in a huff, a playful smile twitching on her lips. If you all plan on accompanying me, I don't mind. I am going to train right after my meal though. The others nodded as Naruto led them to his room. It wasn't any different than their own in all honesty. It seemed larger since there was only one bed and a small table instead of the normal 4 beds most dorms had. There were no personal effects that anyone could see, making Blake raise a brow. You don't have any pictures. Naruto removed his small cloak, setting it on his bed. He moved to what looked like a small refrigerator, pulling out an apple. You're correct. She frowned at his vague answer, but left it be. Why do you get fridge? Yang yelled at the blonde. He looked over his shoulder as he closed it. Comes with the job. He grinned at her angry face, biting into the apple. Make yourselves comfortable, though I don't exactly have enough space for everyone. Situating themselves as best they could, they all took seats. Blake, Weiss, and Yang sat on his bed, making sure to not disturb the cloak. Ren, Nora, and Ruby sat in front of the bed. Pura and John took the 2 seats at the table. Naruto opted to stand, leaning against the refrigerator. "Why don't you have any pictures?" Ruby asked expectantly. "I don't have anything with me that could remind me of home." His answer was simple, yet sad. "Can you tell us why you have done what you have?" Ren asked. Everyone looked at the boy in shock. Ren was usually the reserved and calm one. For him to just come out and ask that was completely insane. Ren understood that it was a sensitive topic, but no one else would come out and ask it. If they spent all of their time dodging the question, they wouldn't get anywhere. "Why do you ask?" "I am curious, as is everyone else, I am sure." The rest of them tried to be inconspicuous about listening, but it was obvious. "You don't have to answer if it makes you uncomfortable or if I offended you." "No, you're fine." He took another bite of his apple before going silent. "Love." Blake felt something click inside of her. That was just like the book she had finished reading. The hero pushing forward, wading through legions of enemies to rescue his loved one. "A love?" Ruby asked with sparkles in her eyes. She had always been a sucker for cliché romance. "The love for my home." The girl slumped a bit at that. No tragic love story here, at least not the one they thought it might be. "When I joined the academy at my home, I was taught to fight for the village. You lived, breathed, and died for it if necessary. Killing was an essential part of what makes me who I am. When every day you could be sent on the mission that would be the death of you, you fought to keep yourself alive. If you survived, you were able to protect the village for another day." "That sounds terrible." Pura whispered. "It may sound bad, but it wasn't. Everyone I loved was in that village. If it meant protecting all of your loved ones, would you kill someone?" Pura didn't answer. "It wasn't that I never had a choice in the matter. I chose to serve the village. It was my way of proving to everyone that I was a capable person and not someone that didn't have a place in the world." "Do you feel bad?" Nora asked, surprisingly calm for the story. "For killing?" "Yes." The others sighed in relief, albeit silently. "For protecting my village? Never. If I had to, I'd fight to the death against an army if it meant protecting those I care about from harm." He smiled weakly. "That was the way I was raised though. It was drilled into my head for a long time." "What was your academy like?" Y spoke. "It must be very different from Beacon." "You have no idea." Naruto chuckled. "I started the academy at the age of 6. They froze in place at that fact." "You mean you were trained to kill people when you were 6? John whispered in disbelief. Ruby started to look a little pale. "Yeah. I graduated at 13. I've been a hunter for 4 years now." Weiss raised an eyebrow. "That would make you 17. "Yes, I am 17. You seem more mature." Naruto chuckled weakly. "I went through a lot before I came here. Let's leave it at that." He finished his apple, tossing the core into a small trash bin. "Well, this was fun, but I need to train now. As much as I want 8 people in my apartment while I'm away, I'd rather you not." The 2 teams stood and made their way to the door. He made his way to the bed, grabbing his cloak. Unintentionally, he brushed up against Blake. She felt a shiver flow through her body before she mentally slapped herself. Why wouldn't her body stop acting so stupid? He ushered them out, closing the door behind him. After a small and a wave, the 2 teams left, sans Blake. Naruto stared at her curiously. "Did you need something, Miss Belladonna?" "Blake is fine." Naruto nodded. "Do you have a scroll?" He pulled his from his pouch, nodding again with a smile. "Yeah, why do you ask?" Then she felt herself clam up. Now wasn't the time for being timid. She needed to ask. She had to. "Can I have your scroll number?" Naruto cocked his head curiously. "Blake, come on." Yang waved her back to the group. "Never mind, I need to." "Wait." Naruto stopped her. "I don't actually know my scroll number. I haven't had much time to look at it. Can you give me yours? That might be easier, otherwise I'll be here for an hour searching for it." Naruto looked embarrassed to be so easily beaten by a small screen, but it was the truth. Blake nodded, flipping through one of her notebooks to a blank page before scribbling on it. She tore the page out and handed it to Naruto before putting her notebook back with her school books. "Thanks." She left before he could say anything, leaving him staring at the paper weirdly. "I wanted to talk with you about some things, but I didn't want to do it in front of the others. Call me when you get a chance." Underneath was a string of numbers. That must be her scroll's number. Call her? What did that mean? What was the number for? He signed. Maybe he really just needed to have another long talk with Ozpin about this world. Chapter 6. Training. What was that about? Yang whispered excitedly as the 4 entered their dorm room. "I saw you give him something." "What was it?" "It was nothing." Blake whispered, keeping her face hidden behind her book, out of view from Yang. "You liar," she yelled playfully. "What was it, a love note?" She smiled down at the girl as Blake glared over the edge of the book. It wasn't anything of the sort. She just gave him her scroll number so he could call her. What did she do? As Blake's face paled, Yang assumed she was right in her accusations. "Aha. I knew it." She did a little victory dance to herself as an angry Weiss burst out of the bathroom. "Can you keep it down? I think half of Beacon can hear you." Yang ignored the comment as she whipped around to face the girl. "Blake has got a crush." Weiss lost her anger immediately, her expression transforming into something akin to amused. "Oh, does she? Who is it? Do we know him?" "I do not have a crush on anyone." Blake denied the allegations, but was ignored by the pair. "It's Naruto." Weiss gasped. "What? You barely know him though." Yang grinned even wider. "That's not even the best part. When she stayed behind, I saw her give something to him before running back to us. I'm pretty sure it was love note." Yang clapped her hands together like a schoolgirl. "Really, Blake? Love note? I thought you would go with something more modern." Weiss pressed a finger to her chin thoughtfully. "Still, it is a nice gesture." "It wasn't a love note." The faunus blurted out, trying to get the pair to stop. She realized her mistake too late. "Then what was it?" Yang grinned evilly. "Keep it down, Ruby's already asleep." Blake scolded the girl before peering over at their leader. Indeed, she was snoring away. How she was able to fall asleep so fast, given her normal capacity for energy, was beyond her. Besides, it's not important. She turned over to face the wall, pulling the covers up over her head. "Poor Blakey." Yang cried out mockingly. She was left heartbroken after finding out Naruto's heart had already been claimed by another. Blake flung the covers off, glaring down at Yang. She chuckled nervously as she pointed at Weiss. "She stole it, not me." Weiss sputtered indignantly as she began to scold Yang for dragging her into the web of lies she was creating. Blake rolled her eyes and hopped off of her bed, heading for the door. "Where are you going?" Yang asked, genuinely curious. "Out." She closed the door, a little more forcefully than necessary. Weiss sighed, turning to Yang. "I think you took your teasing too far." Yang just waved her hand in Weiss's face. "Nah, she'll be fine. I wasn't lying about her giving him something though, I just don't know what it was. It looked like a piece of paper." "Still. Relax, she knows I was just teasing. Give her a few minutes to cool off and she'll be back, right as rain." She grinned at Weiss. "Or maybe even right as Yang." Weiss groaned. "That was really bad, even for you. Hey, you try having to come up with jokes all the time, see how easy it is, or how hard it is." Weiss banged her head against her bedpost, hoping the thing would collapse and end the torture of Yang's humor. At least the bed wouldn't purposefully give her a slow death. "You don't know how to use it. Correct? So you came to ask me. Correct? Right after you were just with 8 other students who know their scrolls backwards and forwards. Correct? You see where I am going with this?" "Yes." Ozpin sighed and grabbed Naruto's scroll. The boy was definitely a strange one. After tapping a few buttons and download an application or two, he handed it back. "Just press this if you have a problem, tell it what the problem is, and it will direct you on how to fix it." Naruto nodded, staring at the thing that may save him hours, if not days worth of trouble with the scroll. "Got it? Is that all you needed?" "Yeah. Very well." Ozpin rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Well, I always encourage students to come to me if they have a problem. You do not need to come to me for every problem. A simple question to one of your friends would have sufficed." Naruto nodded before leaving the man alone in his office. Friends? Maybe eventually. Right now they were more teammates. They hadn't yet gotten close, but they knew some of his history. They were like velvet in that sense, though she was someone he had put his guard up for, rather than someone he had let his guard down for. He looked down at the scroll as he exited the building, heading towards the fountain. He did have a dorm, but he didn't mind sitting outside for a few moments before heading off for training. Taking his seat, he opened up a help app, asking it on how to put a number in his scroll. With its help, he spent way less time than normal doing what needed to be done. He smiled and patted himself on the back for a job well done, even if it wasn't exactly his accomplishment. The credit went to Ozpin there. After asking the thing a few more questions, he found he was able to call, which meant talking over the scroll, message, sending letters through the scroll, and video chat, letting him talk and see the other person's face through the scroll. It was really astounding, considering the closest thing in the elemental nations he could compare to it was a train. He figured he could send a message to Blake, letting her know he would be training tonight very Kate, so it was unlikely he would be able to talk to her. It wasn't exactly late yet, but the sun was definitely more setting than rising. He typed up a quick message before sending it. He pocketed his scroll and prepared to leave when he felt it vibrate. Yang's teasing wasn't the greatest thing to deal with, but Blake knew it was the girl's way of having a good laugh between friends. She wasn't really angry, but she did want to have a moment to herself before getting back to her book, then possibly sleep, without Yang embarrassing her. She didn't really know where she was headed until her scroll vibrated. That was weird, was Yang trying to get her back already? She flicked it open and opened up her messages, her eyes widening when she saw who the new one was from. She didn't expect anything back so quickly. Especially that night. Sorry but I can't talk tonight. Late training session planned. Tomorrow should be okay. She felt a frown pull over her face as she read it. So much for talking as soon as possible. The sooner the better, in her eyes. She quickly responded. Where at? She waited patiently. He was probably still adjusting, so she don't expect lightning fast typing from him, but she could wait. Her scroll vibrated. 5 miles outside of Beacon. Why? That far away? Wouldn't it be easier to train in the training rooms? Even just right outside the school if need be? Why so far? The next message came a bit quicker than the last one. I tend to be destructive. You didn't answer my question. She twitched. She really don't know why she asked him where he was training. Most people use the same 4 rooms or just a clearing outside. She was glad she did though, since he would be impossible to find without knowing that. Just curious. Could I watch you train? I'm not doing anything interesting and I'm taking a break from the dorm. She anxiously awaited his reply. Maybe they could just talk face to face. Would she be able to sit through it though? Meet me at the fountain. Blake's heart skipped a beat. A nighttime rendezvous? Just like in the story with. No. She spoke aloud, stopping her imagination from running wild. It was not a rendezvous. He agreed to let her watch him train while she talked to him. Nothing more, nothing less. She steeled herself, taking a deep breath, walking down the halfway to exit the building. Once she did, it was short trip to the fountain. Their dorm room wasn't too far from the school's entrance. When she arrived, she saw the blonde sitting on a bench, looking at his scroll intently. Naruto. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. Blake, I was actually waiting for another message. I still need to get used to this thing. She suppressed a laugh as Naruto pocketed his scroll. This may sound weird, but I'm going to need you to climb on my back. Blake froze, her head turning mechanically to look up at Naruto's face. I need to do what? Well, either that or let me carry you. It will take less time to reach the training area. He smiled innocently down at her. What? I run really fast. You'll see when we leave. Blake didn't understand but resigned herself to being carried piggyback. This way he couldn't see her embarrassment or the small smile she had. When she was firmly planted on his back, his arms underneath her legs and her hands gripping his shoulders, he turned his head back. You need to lock your arms around my neck. Her body tensed up. More unnecessary contact. She was having enough trouble ordering her body to function properly, she didn't need this too. Reluctantly she did as he asked, locking her arms together, her head lay against his shoulder. Hold on. That was all of the warning she got before she felt like she was being pulled back off of him. The wind was screaming loudly around them, whipping by at dangerous speeds. She closed her eyes and waited until it was over. Not a minute later, he came to a stop, releasing her legs. She nearly tumbled to the ground but managed to keep herself upright. She looked around, seeing a beacon tower poking up above the treetops in the distance. Her eyes went wide. They really were that far from Beacon. How did you get here so quickly? I ran. She didn't really believe it, but what else could have explained the massive distance covered? He did say he could run fast, but this was ridiculous. Naruto formed a hand seal, creating 100 clones. Alright, work on the last thing we did. The clones grumbled for a moment before getting to work. They moved to the large crater in the ground before beginning their work. Blake watched in surprise as 100 other Narutos began making hand seals. So? Naruto sat down on the ground, motioning for her to do the same. What did you need to talk about? Blake joined him and sitting, fiddling with her bow for a second. Just something I've been having trouble with lately. Wouldn't your friends be better suited for that then? She turned to look up at him. I'm not exactly close to any of you, but you all seem to be at good terms. I'm sure they could help you a lot more than I could. They don't have experience with what my problem is, as far as I know. Oh? Naruto crossed his arms in thought. Well, maybe I can help then. So what's the problem? How was she supposed to tell him? Hey, my body acts funny when I see you, what does that mean? It sounded stupid, even in her head. You know, you remind me of a girl I once knew. She glanced over at him curiously. Hinata. She was really shy, rarely speaking with anyone outside of her close group of friends. She was in the academy with me, and even though she was considered one of the best girls that graduated, she never wanted to hurt anyone if she could help it. She had trouble opening up to people because she always thought she was weak and didn't deserve their attention. He smiled. The last time I saw her, his voice trailed off. He almost forgot about what happened during the battle with Pain. She said she loved him. It wasn't something he was expecting. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that you shouldn't let whatever is bothering you bother you. It will only end up holding you back and could cost you something you aren't prepared to lose. Just open up and let people see you for you. Blake smiled slightly. His words did make her feel a little better about the situation. I don't know if that answered your problem since you haven't told me it yet. He laughed nervously. I guess I should have waited for you first. It's alright. Blake smiled. I appreciate what you said. Glad I could help. She didn't know what it was that made her do it. Maybe it was the weird feeling she had. Maybe it was a sudden urge to do something rather than sit back and observe like she normally did. Whatever the case, her hands made their way to her bow, untying it. She sat quietly for a moment, staring at the ground while waiting for a response. When she received none, she chanced to look at the blonde. He was smiling. You look better without the bow. That was all he said. That was all she needed to hear. If he could look at her and not view her differently after he had seen her ears, then she could trust him. I've been having weird feelings around a person. Naruto looked over to his clones, still training brutally. I don't know what it is. What kind of feelings? He asked. I feel jealous when I see them with another person. Sometimes I think about them for no reason at all. Naruto thought for a moment before it clicked. He smiled, laughing quietly. Blake looked up in fear. Was he laughing at her? Did she trust him too quickly? I think I know what the problem is. His smile softened. It's not something you can just explain to someone though. They have to figure it out for themselves. He reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. Try and spend some time with that person. Maybe they will start to come around. It wasn't the answer she was looking for, but it was better than her stumbling around blindly. I'm not the best with being social. She admitted. Before Beacon, I didn't really have any friends. Naruto's smile fell into a look of pain. It shocked her to say the least. She had seen him smile, laugh, even be angry, but in pain. I'll help you if I can. He spoke quietly. Besides, what are friends for? Blake smiled and nodded. A person to trust. Another friend to have. Naruto let her stay as long as she wanted to. He told her he could take her back if she wanted to go, but she said she was happy with sitting and watching him train. Regardless, it was training time, so he left Blake alone while he worked with the clones. Blake was happy observing until her scroll buzzed. She ignored it until it buzzed again and again flicking her scroll open, she saw it was Yang. Well, she didn't tell them how long she was going to be gone and it had been a little over an hour. Where are you? Answer your scroll. I swear if you don't answer I'll burn your books. She tapped out a quick reply before setting her scroll down. I'm fine, don't touch my books. I'm with Naruto. Almost instantly she got a response. She sighed and looked at the message. I didn't mean to interrupt your alone time. Have fun. Blake groaned before replying. Seriously, did Yang have nothing better to do than poke fun at her right now? I already said it's nothing like that. He messaged me and I met up with him. We've just talked is all. Her gaze turned back to the blonde. He was sparring with a few clones, taking each of them out with a well-placed stab. His skill with a knife was certainly impressive. A buzz interrupted her thoughts. How did he message you? I didn't even know he had a scroll. Blake ignored it, realizing she already let the secret slip. Another buzz. You gave him your number. Oh my god, this is gold. Just wait till Weiss and RWBY hear about this. XD. Letting out another frustrated sigh, she quickly typed out her final message before turning her scroll off. It's not like that, I've said it a few times now. I wanted to ask him a few questions and he agreed to answer them. I'll be back in a little bit. Naruto. She called out to the blonde. He stopped in mid-strike, turning to look over at Blake. Yeah? Can you take me back to the dorm? Sure. He smiled, turning to the clones and telling them to continue. Hop on. He turned around. Offering his back to her again. Thanks. Blake stumbled off of his back. He dropped her off at the fountain, not knowing where her dorm room exactly was. No problem. He waved before jumping away, disappearing into the fading light of day. She began her walk back to the dorm, dreading dealing with Yang. Her fears were realized when she opened the door to their room, seeing an excited Yang, a blushing RWBY, and a stern-looking Weiss. Welcome back, Yang sang out to her. Blake sighed before making her way into her bed. She pulled the covers up to her chin before noticing the three staring intently at her from Weiss's bed. What? What exactly were you doing out so long? Weiss asked. She'd reserved judgment until Blake explained herself at the very least. I was with Naruto. Yes you were. Yang emphasized each word. Tell me everything. I watched him train. Yang deflated a bit. That's it? Yes. Yang pouted. That was no fun. So you aren't RWBY pressed her fingers together nervously. Dating? Blake's cheeks tinted at the thought. No, nothing like that. RWBY nodded, still blushing. Maybe it was her being younger than them. Her inexperience with these kind of situations could be making her uncomfortable. Alright. Y spoke, apparently pleased with her answer. Next time you better tell us if you're going to stay out for so long though. Y shooed the other two off of her bed before laying down herself. Blake turned over, wondering if the blonde man would be training all night. Her thoughts stayed on him as she drifted off to sleep. Chapter 7. Misunderstanding. The week had passed. While it wasn't the easiest thing to adjust to, Naruto found himself in a decent niche at Beacon. Sometimes he still got weird looks, but they weren't hateful. For that he was glad. He had grown closer to Team RWBY and JNPR. They now made regular visits to his dorm. Never all at once, and usually only to stop by for a quick hello, but all the same it felt nice. He had only been on one other mission since his last, another D rank that was outside of Vale. Growing restless would be putting it mildly. After going so long without a proper fight, he was starting to get twitchy. His training helped, but the twitch always came back. After asking Ozpin about it, the man suggested leaving for a bit. Just a day or two, out visiting some places in Vale. Perhaps bring a friend or two along since the weekend was swiftly approaching. Naruto agreed. Maybe a day out would help. That's where he found himself, sitting in his room, messaging the others about a day in the city. Unfortunately, Team JNPR was completely booked, already having planned group training for the weekend. Team RWBY had readily agreed, so it would be a party of 5. When are you all okay with leaving? I don't mind what time really. Naruto was messaging RWBY as the girl was trying to avoid her schoolwork and he gave her an out. I don't think it matters, as long as it's not too early. Yang can be cranky if she gets woken up too early. Naruto laughed to himself. She seemed like the kind of person that would do that. Well, I'm sure I'll be up before you. Just come on by whenever you're ready, sound good? He tapped his fingers against his leg, waiting for a response. No problem. He was about to respond when he got another message from the girl. He opened it and raised an eyebrow at her question. RWBY lay on her bed, ignoring Weiss's demands to do her work due for tomorrow. She was having much more fun talking with Naruto, why should she ruin it? Hey, what time should we leave this weekend? She asked her teammates. Naruto says he doesn't care when. Not early. Yang immediately spoke, looking around the room as if daring someone to challenge her decision. When no one did, RWBY responded with a few swift strokes to the scroll. She hummed a tune while waiting for Naruto to reply. He said to just go over there whenever we are ready. She didn't receive a reply, but noticed everyone nod in agreement. She almost swore she saw Blake staring at her when she said that, but the girl turned back to her book too quickly for her to tell if she was or not. After she replied, she immediately sent out another message, hoping she wouldn't be making him mad with that kind of question. Do you like Blake? It was well direct wouldn't do it justice. Blake had been acting weird for a few days now, and it all had to do with Naruto. It took her a while to piece that together, but she did. Maybe Yang's teasing wasn't so far off. Well yeah, I like all of you guys. She smiled. He didn't understand what she meant, but she was glad he liked them all. They were basically friends at this point. I meant like Blake. She waited nervously for his response. You mean like more than a friend? Like a girlfriend? RWBY, please start on your work. Weiss sighed. You'll be up all night if you don't start now. Not now, Weiss. This is important. She quickly typed out a response before sticking her tongue out at her friend. Weiss rolled her eyes before returning to her own work. Yeah, like a girlfriend. She couldn't imagine asking him this in person. It was much easier to talk about this over the scroll. She was embarrassed enough when Yang only implied about Blake's feelings. I never really thought about it to be honest. She didn't get to finish reading as Weiss let out a groan. RWBY, please. What could be so important that you can't do your homework? It's just important. She huffed, rolling onto her back. Yang slipped off of her bed, shuffling over to her sister's bunk. Poking her head over the edge of it, she spied on RWBY as she read the only message she could see. Yeah, like a girlfriend. RWBY. RWBY jumped at her sister's voice, almost throwing her scroll. She clutched it close to her chest as she stared at her sister. Yang, don't scare me like that. Why are you talking to Naruto about girlfriends? Weiss stopped writing, turning slowly to look up at the two girls. Blake had lowered her book enough to stare over at them as well. And no reason. She squeaked out. That was enough evidence for Yang. She marched straight out of the dorm, her thoughts only on beating up a certain blonde. RWBY sat frozen as the other two continued staring. Weiss's stare was one of disbelief and shock, while Blake seemed suspicious. Maybe even angry. RWBY, Weiss started. Why didn't you tell us you had a crush on Naruto? RWBY flushed at the accusation. I don't. Yang didn't read the whole thing, it wasn't about. You don't have to explain yourself to me. Weiss halted her. Your personal life isn't my business. She turned back to her work silently. Ruby turned to Blake for help, but the girl was already buried in her book. She let out a cry as she fell back onto her bed. This wasn't fair. Yang didn't even bother knocking when she reached his room. She kicked the door down, storming straight inside. Naruto was sitting on his bed, quietly tapping on his scroll. He looks up and smiled, giving her a small wave. He had told them they were always welcome, and Yang did seem to like big entrances. Hey Yang. You have some nerve. She glared down at him, standing right at the edge of his bed. Corrupting my sister like that. I did what now? Naruto cocked his head. What was she talking about? What did you do to make her your girlfriend? Did you threaten her or something? Her glare intensified. She's my what? Yang screamed as she brought her fist down at Naruto. He dodged it with little difficulty, moving off of his bed to stand near the door. Hey, calm down. Don't lie to me. I saw the message. What message? The one Ruby just sent you about being your girlfriend. You can't hide from that, all of Team RWBY knows. She stalked towards him, readying for another punch. Wait. He got her to stop her advance. You must have misread something, Yang. Ruby isn't my girlfriend. He shuffled around Yang back to his bed. After picking up the dropped scroll, he turned it to face Yang. See? She scrolled through the short amount of messages, losing some of her anger with each one. I never really thought about it, to be honest. Blake's a good friend, but I don't think she would like me like that. She likes someone else though. Besides, I'm not really looking for a girlfriend. I'm having enough trouble just trying to get used to everything here. Maybe one day in the future, but no time soon. Oh. Yang felt a little embarrassed by her outburst just now, but it was her sister. She would protect her if it was the last thing she did. Sorry. It's okay. He smiled. Just spy on the rest of the messages next time too. He chuckled as Yang laughed. Will do. She glanced back at his scroll. What did you mean that Blake liked someone? When we talked last week, I got the impression that she had feelings for this person she kept talking about. I could be wrong, but don't tell her I told you. I wanted her to figure it out for herself. He stared at her sternly. Fine. Yang pouted. She'd have to find another reason to poke fun at Blake now. She hadn't made a cat joke in a while. Did you need anything else, or did you only come to attack me? Yang. Ruby burst into the room before Yang could respond. The short girl looked ready to fight. Don't hurt him. She trailed off when she saw the pair standing, not fighting, staring at her. You aren't fighting. I explained the situation. Naruto explained. Oh. Don't scare me like that, Ruby. Yang threw her arm around her sister. You're too young to have a boyfriend. I am not. Ruby yelled as Yang pulled her out of the room. As long as I'm your sister you are. Naruto smiled at the pair as they left. Yang definitely cared for Ruby, her reaction proved that much. Maybe she went a bit over the top, but he would have done the same if anyone had started to Sakura. They either treated her like a princess or they met his fist. Why can't I have a boyfriend? Ruby asked yet again as the pair entered their dorm room. Weiss stared up from her paper and Blake ignored them. Because I said so. That's not a reason. Yes it is. She said matter-of-factly. Every older sibling has that power. That's a lie. Ruby muttered, sitting down on Weiss's bed. Weiss, tell her it's a lie. The girl sighed. She just wants to protect you. You can get a boyfriend if you want to. Yang glared at Weiss as Ruby cheered. So who are you going to get together with? Blake spoke from behind her book. They couldn't see it, but her hands clutched the book much harder than necessary. Ruby blushed and hung her head. I don't know. Why make such a big deal about it then? Weiss questioned her. Because I'm not a kid. Just because there isn't a boy doesn't mean I can't date one eventually. Yang sighed. Ruby, do you even understand what dating is? Of course. Then what do you do on a date? Ruby began to speak when her voice fell. What did she know about dating? See, you aren't ready for something like that. I know it involves holding hands and dinner, sometimes kissing. Yang bristled at her words. No one better be kissing you. I can kiss whoever I want. Weiss and Blake sighed respectively. This was going to last all night, wasn't it? The next day brought with it a shining sun and two angry girls. One was angry because she was being forbidden from even looking at boys by the other. The other was angry because the former took the time to stare at every boy they passed in the halls on their way to class, most likely out of spite. By the time they sat down in their last class of the day, Yang was tempted to attack any guy that even glanced in their direction, most likely to spite Ruby. When Glinda and Naruto walked in, she managed to calm down a little bit. Glinda wouldn't approve of that kind of action in her class, and Naruto would stop her before she could do anything to anyone. Best to let it go for this class at least. That was the plan. Then Ruby had to start staring at Naruto. Damn it, there was no easy way out of this, was there? Today is our weekly reprise from set matches, you may challenge anyone you wish today. She gestured to Naruto. Naruto will be stepping in throughout the day and fighting several of you. After a round of nods, Glinda called the first person to the floor, their partner tagging along. It was then Naruto noticed something peculiar. "Miss Rose, is there something wrong?" he called out. The people around her noticed her fixation on Naruto. "No. Then please watch the match, not me." She sighed, turning to the pair of fighters as they began. "You shouldn't be staring at Naruto." Yang whispers harshly. "People will start to get the wrong idea. You're just mad because I'm looking at a guy. Stop being so overbearing." Yang grit her teeth. "I am not being overbearing, just tone down the sultry gazes." "I am not giving him sultry gazes." RWBY raised her voice slightly. "You could have fooled me, you haven't stopped staring at any guy since we left the room this morning. For all I know you're practicing your seduction methods for later." Yang teased lightly. She was still angry, but maybe her joke would break some of the tension between the two. "I'm not trying to seduce Naruto," RWBY yelled. The pair of fighters stopped, everyone turning to the girl who now seemed mortified. "Be that as it may, Miss Rose, I believe that is a conversation left behind closed doors." Glinda spoke. The others erupted into either laughter or whispers. "Please continue." She waved at the fighters. Naruto glanced up at the girl. She was doing her best to hide underneath her cloak, no doubt embarrassed by the outburst and being called out on it. Seduce him? That's the thing he had trouble seeing. While he didn't believe anyone her age could be completely innocent, she seemed to be more ignorant of the problems of the world than the others. Maybe a talk about what happened would be in order. Class was over, RWBY had managed to avoid getting called. Whether Glinda did it on purpose or she just got lucky remains to be seen. The 4 members of Team RWBY left as soon as they were dismissed, their leader moving a bit quicker than necessary. It didn't take them long to make it back to their dorm, what with RWBY practically running to the room and the others doing their best to keep up. "RWBY, I'm sorry." Yang kept apologizing. Honestly, things had gone too far. She didn't want her sister embarrassed like that, especially in front of the entire class. "Shut up." She yelled, throwing herself into her bed. Yang flinched at the words. RWBY had never said anything like that to her before. Most people would just brush it off, but coming from the person you cared about most, it hurt. "RWBY, I didn't mean to. Maybe you should just give her some space to breathe." Weiss placed her hand on the brawler's shoulder. "Give her some time to cool off." Yang threw the hand off, opting to climb into her own bed. Weiss sighed, turning to her own bed. Work could wait. Maybe she could just relax for a few minutes. Lei climbed into her bed, staring at the short girl across from her. She might have been jealous of her for what she said, but she felt bad for her too. Getting outed like that must have caused her quite a shock. The knock at the door shook her from her thoughts. Weiss was already up, opening the door for their guest. "Miss Schnee." Her ears perked up at the voice. "You can call me Weiss, Naruto." "Very well. I'm here for Miss Rose." Weiss turned back to look at the girl. "I don't think she's in any state to talk to anyone." "I see. Well, tell her I hope she feels better. Remember, I'll go." RWBY called out. She hopped down from her bed, walking over to the door. "It's better than being here." Yang tensed visibly at the remark, but she made no move to turn away from the wall. "She'll be back soon." Naruto smiled, leafing the girl away from the room. The pair were walking to the fountain. Maybe it was because he spent his first night there, or perhaps it was because the sound of water falling was relaxing, but he felt a lot calmer here than anywhere else. Sitting on the bench facing the school, Naruto turned to the girl and smiled. "You planned on seducing me?" RWBY choked at the question. "And no. I know." She looked up at him curiously. "Even if you were, you'd have to do better than how you were." He laughed as she turned scarlet. "It was Yang's fault." "How so?" She crossed her arms. "She kept telling me I couldn't date boys, so I stared at everyone I could. I'm not a kid anymore, she can't tell me what to do." Naruto frowned. "You say that, but your response says otherwise. Instead of talking it out, you immediately did everything you could to annoy her. That would be the definition of childish." She stared in disbelief at the blonde. "But trying to argue for no reason other than to get what you want is childish as well. If you are trying to prove a point then you are well within your rights to argue, but trying to tell me you're not a kid won't prove it to me." RWBY kept quiet. Naruto smiled. "Now, would you like to explain why you had such an overreaction to such a thing?" She was silent for a moment before she began speaking. "Yang's always like that. She tries to act like a mother to me, not a sister." "Why do you think that is?" RWBY thought for a moment before shifting in her seat. "Well, my mom passed away a long time ago and Yang's mom left when we were little. She's always been the oldest girl around." Naruto nodded along to her words. "It sounds like she has taken up the role of mother since both of yours are gone. You know what I think?" RWBY cocked her head. I think you're lucky. She raised an eyebrow before frowning at him. How am I lucky? Because you have someone that cares about you even more than themselves. Yang would let herself die before she saw you get hurt. He poked her shoulder. You're the center of her world and anything, grim, bad people, and yes, even boys, are all things that can hurt you. If you got hurt, it would hurt her twice as much. Ruby's face softened as the words touched her. Let's say, for a moment, you do have a boyfriend. One day, you find out he was cheating on you. How would that make you feel? I'd want to curl up into a ball and cry. Or never leave my dorm room again. Yang would feel all of that, as well as hate for the boy that hurt you. He ruffled her hair, prompting her to swat at his hands. You're her sister, her only one at that. If she lost you, she'd be alone. What if Yang just disappeared one day or came into the room crying because of a boy? How would you feel if you saw her in a state of disrepair or never got to see her again? RWBY widened her eyes for a moment before they started to tear up. I wouldn't be able to keep on living. That's the exact same way she feels. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, even annoying, but she only does it because she loves you. More than anything else in the world. She's just doing her best to protect you until you can protect yourself. When that day comes, you'll be ready to deal with anything the world throws at you. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand as she sniffled. When did you get so smart about everything? He chuckled. I grew up with a team. They were my family. I'd do anything to keep them alive and well, just like Yang would. What about your family? Naruto stopped smiling. I'm sorry. It's okay. I never had any siblings that I knew of. Both of my parents died when I was young. RWBY stared up at him, tears forming in her eyes again. You've been alone your whole life. No, I've always had the old man. He was basically a grandfather to me. Then there was Pervy Sage, he was the closest thing to a father I had. He had his moments, but he was a good man. Granny was a mom to me, even if she didn't like me calling her Granny. He smiled wistfully at his memories of the three. RWBY shuffled nervously next to him. He was talking about them like they weren't there anymore. Where are they now? Naruto's small smile dropped yet again. The old man died when I was 12. Pervy Sage was killed during a mission not too long ago. Granny is alive as far as I know, probably cursing my name for disappearing on her. He chuckled at the image of an angry Tsunade getting overwhelmed by paperwork. Why would she be cursing you? I was supposed to take the village leadership from he stopped. He never meant to talk that in depth about his past. RWBY's eye widened. You were going to be a village leader. But all of the leaders here are old and you're young. Yeah, but I'm special. He chuckled. Are you okay now? I'm good. She sighed. I think I should apologize to Yang. Naruto nodded. That sounds like a good idea. The pair stood up before RWBY quickly hugged him. He tensed at the sudden contact but smiled, settling for patting her head. Thanks, Naruto. No problem, RWBY. He pulled her off of him. Now no more seducing until you can at least keep quiet about it. She flushed deeply, turning around and stomping off. He laughed as he headed for his dorm room. Someday the girl would look back and laugh at herself. RWBY opened the door to the dorm room, peering inside. Weiss looked up at her before returning to her work. Blake snuck a look over her book, trying to be discreet. Yang hadn't moved from her position, still lying down facing the wall. She crept inside, closing the door softly. She marched right up to Yang's bed before prodding her shoulder. Yang? The girl turned over, her eyes slightly red and puffy. What? I am sorry. I didn't mean to act like I did. Yang raised an eyebrow at the girl before she continued. You were only trying to protect me, I know that now. Thank you. RWBY held out her arms hesitantly, her eyes tearing up. Are we good? Yang smiled tearily at her sister. Of course you doof. They embraced tightly, laughing or crying the other two couldn't tell. They were happy again and that all that mattered. They pulled apart after a few minutes with a smile. RWBY's smile soon turned to hesitancy as she played with Yang's blanket. Hey Yang, what if there was a boy that I liked? Yang turned her gaze to her sister's blushing face. I don't like it, she crossed her arms. But I'll allow it. She glared swiftly down at RWBY. If he hurts you, you just point me in his direction. He won't have kids after I'm done. Her smile was anything but good. Blake's ears flicked as she heard the two below. RWBY didn't have a crush on Naruto for real now, did she? What did that mean for her? Could she really try and intrude now after saying nothing for a week? She sighed quietly. This was going to be a problem. Chapter 8. A problem. The following morning saw a pair of reunited sisters, stronger than ever, waking up early to the rising sun. RWBY had slept in Yang's bed with her sister, circled up to her protectively. That was the best sleep I'd ever had. Yang exclaimed as she yawned, sitting up out of bed. I'm not even mad that I'm up early. That's a first. RWBY groaned from beneath the covers. It's too early for this, let's go back to bed. Ah! Yang smiled down at her sister's grumpy face, poking from underneath the sheets. Today is our day out with Naruto so he can see the city. An earlier start means more to see, and since I'm already up, you have to get up too. That's not even sound logic, Yang. The girl groaned, pointing over to another bed. Look, Weiss is still asleep, and I'm sure Blake is too. Just relax for a minute. Did you two switch personalities? Blake poked her head out from the bed above, watching them curiously. RWBY wants to sleep and Yang wants to go and do something. It's weird. I'm just in a good mood is all. Yang smiled at the girl. Well, don't expect me to start acting like Weiss. She pulled her head back, stretching widely as she overcame her morning drowsiness. I wouldn't dream of it. Yang smiled before shivering at the thought. That would be a terrible thing. I'm not that bad. Weiss grumbled from her bed. Since you all want to have a party this early, I guess I have to get up too. Yep. Yang grinned, giving her a thumbs up. Weiss rolled her eyes before throwing her blankets off of her. Fine. I call first shower. She made her way to the bathroom as RWBY got out of bed herself. So what are we doing for the day? She asked absent-mindedly as she did her best to find a change of clothes. I don't know, but it better start with some breakfast. I'm hungry. As if on cue, Yang's stomach growled loudly, making her laugh in embarrassment. I'll let Naruto know we are getting ready. I already did. The pair looked up at Blake as she tapped silently on her scroll. Cool. RWBY smiled. Yang, however, had a curious look on her face. You mean tomorrow morning? Naruto asked, standing in Ozpin's office. Yes. There is a small village a few miles outside of Vale. They've recently been having small grim attacks, but they've grown increasingly more frequent. A few children have gone missing, whether from the attacks or not, and I'd like for you to look for them while hunting the grim down. Standard search and destroy with hostages. Got it. Anything else? Ozpin shook his head. No, but remember this is B rank. With the increase in White Fang movement near Vale, it's not hard to imagine that they perhaps played a part. If they to have the children, please make sure they get to their parents safely. Naruto's eyes hardened. No force in the world could stop me from protecting a child. Especially one taken from their parents. Glad to hear that. Ozpin nodded. I take it you're taking a day out of the school grounds today. Yeah. Team RWBY is accompanying me to Vale. Hopefully I'll get to see some cool stuff. Well, enjoy your visit. Remember you leave tomorrow at the earliest you can. I have to ask, why not today? There is already a hunter in the village. They have been protecting it fairly well so far, you are just backup. You already made plans so I see no reason for you to cancel them now. If something urgent arises, I know where to find you. Naruto nodded, leaving the office quickly. As much as he hated doing it, he'd probably cut the day short and head out mid-afternoon. The sooner he knew the kids were safe, the better he'd feel about it. He couldn't shake the thought of something bad happening to them. It would be on his head for not leaving sooner if it did. He was so caught up in his thoughts, Naruto didn't even realize his scroll started going off. By the time he did, he had reached his dorm room, finding 4 impatient and worried-looking girls. There you are. Weiss yelled out. Don't you know it's rude to keep a lady waiting? He smiled weakly, his thoughts still plaguing him. My apologies, Weiss, I was in a meeting with Ozpin. I must have got wrapped up in my thoughts after it was over. He unlocked and opened his door. Please, come in and sit. They followed him inside, Weiss and Blake taking a seat on his bed while RWBY and Yang sat at the table. You'll have to excuse me, I wasn't expecting you here so early. I still need to shower and dress. He had been lucky enough during his last talk with the headmaster to find someone who specialized in making clothing. He had the lady make him 2 outfits, exactly like the one he had when he first arrived. His money hadn't been enough to pay for all of it, but she had refused any more, saying it was a favor for Ozpin, so his 200 lien would be more than enough. He made his way to the bathroom, undressing and stepping into the shower before realizing something. He didn't bring a change of clothes. Normally this wouldn't be a problem, but with 4 girls in his room, he couldn't just go walking around in a towel. Hey. He called out. I forgot to bring in my change of clothes, could one of you bring them to me? Out in the room, 3 of them froze at his words. Weiss and Blake looked nervous, while RWBY sported a small blush. Yang just rolled her eyes at the 3 before calling back. Where they at? Under the bed. She raised an eyebrow at his questionable choice for clothes storage, but kneeled beside the bed regardless. She found 2 pairs of the clothing he was talking about. He didn't wear anything else, just the orange and black. She pulled the clothes out, banging her hand on the bed frame. Ow. She rubbed her hand as she heard a muffled thump from underneath the bed. She peered back under curiously. A book. That wasn't there before. She grabbed it as well, looking over it closely. It looked like a plain black journal, bound closed with a string. She set the book on the table before marching to the bathroom. She nudged the door open with a smile. I got him. I thought you got lost for a second there. He poked his out from around the curtain. Took you long enough. You can set them wherever. She grinned wickedly. What do I get if I do? A free ass kicking next time we fight. He pulled his head back as Yang pouted. She dropped the clothes on the counter next to the sink before leaving the bathroom. When she walked back into the room, Ruby was looking down at the book with suspicion. Weiss and Blake also glanced at it from the bed. Yang, why did you grab this? Ruby poked at the book. To read it, of course. She sat down and began unwinding the string. Yang. Ruby grabbed her sister's hand. You can't just look through people's stuff like that. What if Naruto sees you reading that? If he didn't want it to be read, he would have kept it hidden better. Besides, I'm sure it's filled with secret love notes for the girl he likes. Ruby and Blake flushed at the thought, but the redhead remained adamant. You can't. I'm only going to look at a few pages. Ruby glared before letting go of her hand. Fine. She stood up and marched over to the bed. I'm not going to be associated with that though. Yang rolled her eyes and pulled the book open. Yang, I think Ruby's right. You shouldn't be going through someone else's personal thoughts. He trusts that book more than he trusts anything. You're breaking that trust if you read it. Weiss implored the girl. One page won't kill me. I'll put it back after that, happy. She sighed, turning her attention to the book. She flipped to the last page, hoping to find something about his time here. She couldn't help but notices the flecks of stained something that littered the page. The date could be the official end of the war. Madara Uchiha, revealed to be Obito Uchiha in disguise, has shown himself. Naruto leads us into battle soon. I only write down these words because I know they will be my last. The blood that has been spilled in this senseless war is sickening. Thousands of bodies litter the ground, more joining them each day. I was lucky enough to make my way back to base, but it all seems for naught. The medics can't cure my injuries, so I asked them to leave me in peace while I wrote my final words. It seems strange almost. Though I know I won't see another sun rise, nor my wife and son's faces again, I'm not scared. I'm happy. Happy that Naruto will defeat Obito Uchiha, win the war, and let everyone go home. For once, the elemental nations will hopefully see a peace that can last a lifetime. Suzuki, my wife, I apologize that the last thing you will receive from me is stained with my blood, but I hope you can understand the circumstances in which I am forced to write this. Ishiro, my son, you will one day grow strong like Naruto. Follow in his footsteps. Protect Konoha from evil and become someone I am sure to be proud of. Naruto, if you find this, please take it to my family. I know you can, you're the only one I trust with this book. Please tell them I. The words cut off. Yang put down the book slowly, her hands shaking madly. She just read the last words of a dead man. One that Naruto had known at that. War. Madara. Obito. Konoha. These names and places were too foreign for her to imagine. Did he come from Vacuo? She didn't know much about out west. Thanks for the clothes you. Naruto stepped out of the shower, smiling at the girls before his smile warped into something they had yet to see on the blonde. Anger. Get out. Naruto, he slammed his fist through the wall, glaring at the four as his eyes bled red. I said get out. Yang dropped the book, quickly leaving the room with the others. He sighed, looking at the wall he just punctured. Today was supposed to be a good day too. He quietly made his way to the journal, picking it up and stowing it away back under the bed. Sorry friend. I should have kept you more secure. I was trusted with your well-being and I failed you. You know you can't ever go back, so its contents don't matter anymore. They do matter, Kurama. The life of a ninja, any ninja, is important. He was a comrade, one that trusted me to give his wife and child some comfort that he thought about them in his last moments. A small favor to ask. One I cannot fulfill now that I'm here. Then perhaps you are growing too attached to this world and its inhabitants. Ozpin suggested you become a hunter nin. I see no reason why that means you have to be friendly with everyone. Whatever the case, I need a break. I should head out to the village now since today's plans are ruined. He gathered his pouches, strapped them on and exited his dorm. He saw Yang stand a little ways away, shuffling her feet nervously. She looked up and saw him. He simply ignored her, choosing to walk away. He had a mission to do. Yang stood outside, waiting patiently. Naruto was angry, something she rather hadn't liked seeing. She wasn't one to get scared, but the way his eyes changed color and the time of his voice, she shivered at the thought. The door to his room opened, revealing the blonde to her. She made to say something, but was cut off when he began walking away. Whether he accepted her apology or not, she still needed to. She was stupid for looking at the journal in the first place. Ruby, Weiss, and Blake would let her know that when she got back to the dorm. She walked off after him, not too keen on catching up with the blonde. After a few moments, Naruto stopped walking, turning to glare at her viciously. What do you want? His murderous time sent her moving back a few steps. I wanted to apologize. Don't. His tone shifted, now sounding annoyed. Perhaps even pained. Just don't. There is nothing you can say or do that would make me accept you back into my life. Yang felt like she was hit with a brick. Out of his life, just like that. If it were mine, I would have scolded you. That was the life of a comrade that entrusted me with said life. I let him down and he died. He gave me another chance when he gave me that journal. It was his last words to a family that loved him and a son he barely knew. I failed him. I can't bring the journal back to them anymore. He turned away from the girl. I haven't read a single word of it. It was for his family and for them alone. You desecrated his memory for something like curiosity. I didn't know, Yang pleaded, but Naruto cut her off with a glare. You didn't know? Is that supposed to make it fucking okay or something? He yelled, stalking towards the girl. She stood frozen as he came nose to nose with her. I cared more about my village and its people than you will ever know. If there was a way to go back, you wouldn't even get as much as a single fucking goodbye from me. I can't, so I'm stuck here, and honestly, I'm thinking I should have just ran when you found me. I could have lived somewhere else, peacefully, protecting a small village maybe. His eyes bled red as his glare intensified. Do not expect your simple apology to work with me, Miss Xiaolong. Do not expect to see much more of me either. What little trust I had with you is gone and it will never come back. He took a step back and his eyes flickered back to normal. I have a mission, if you'll excuse me. He vanished in a flicker of wind and leaves, leaving Yang standing breathless in the hallway. Yang quietly made her way back to her room. She didn't want to face them, not after what Naruto had said to her. Her body was jerky, like she wasn't the one controlling it. Angry. She couldn't be. It wouldn't be right. Sad. While she didn't exactly know him the best out of the group or for very long, she saw him as a goal to work towards. Be as strong as him and you can do anything. Now that her goal basically denied her access to his life anymore, what did she have to work towards? Being a better huntress, of course, but she had no one to sharpen her skills against, no one to point out her flaws so she could fix them. Maybe he was right. Maybe she should stay out of his life. She hadn't done him any good up until this moment, what would be the point in trying to fight her way back in? She sighed quietly as she opened the door. 3 very scared and very angry faces flicked towards her. She just stared at the ground, closing the door quietly before crawling into bed. Don't say it. Yang spoke. I know you want to, but please don't. I talked with Naruto and he made it very clear about my position in his life and how it is non-existent. You all are fine, just please don't, she whispered as she covered up. She did her best to ignore the feeling of the stares in her back as she tried to go to sleep. The other 3 were now concerned. Naruto didn't want Yang in his life. Wasn't that a little extreme for simply reading a book? Yang, why did he say that? Ruby asked, moving over to her sister, laying a hand on her shoulder comfortingly. The book was journal from a friend he had. She spoke quietly. One that died. She felt Ruby stiffen against her before she slowly relaxed. He said it was his job to return that to the man's family, but I violated his memory by reading his last words. Ruby rubbed her sister's arm supportively. She couldn't blame Naruto now. The way he talked about his friends and his village was nothing short of astonishing. To think someone could be that close to something was crazy. Finding out that your friend's last words were read before his family could see them would be heartbreaking to say the least. He may have overreacted a bit though. I'm sure he's just having an overreaction. Surprisingly, Weiss was he one that spoke up to comfort Yang. I'm sure he will still be angry with you, but give it a few days and he'll cool down. No, I understand. Yang said. He doesn't need me in his life. I've done nothing nice for him since we met. I said he had to come with us to Beacon. I got angry at him for beating me in a fight. I was the one that attacked him when I thought he was Ruby's boyfriend. Now I look through a dead friend's memories without even attempting to ask. Yang. It's fine, Ruby. The girl sighed. You 3 are still okay with him by my reckoning, so don't let me hold you back. She shifted slightly before closing her eyes. When Ruby realized she was done taking, she sighed, moving back to her bed. This morning really wasn't a good way to start the day. Chapter 9. Meeting a bird. Yang didn't leave her bed that day, not even to eat with the rest of her team. The girls had brought back some food with them, but it remained untouched. They thought it was just a slump, she would be back to her cheery self tomorrow. Only the next day she still wouldn't get out of bed. They tried everything they could think of, but she still wouldn't budge. Eventually they gave up. Classes tomorrow would pull her away from her funk. Right they were. However much she didn't want to attend class, she couldn't ditch just to mope. She could do that when she got back to the dorm. They made their way to their first class, not entirely ready to listen to Dr. RWBY speak. Regardless, they took their seats and prepared to take notes. Maybe the class would distract them from their troubles. Naruto set off after yelling at Yang. Admittedly, he felt bad. He shouldn't have shouted like he did, but that was the only piece of his home he had with him. One of the medics made sure it got into his hands before the fight with Obito had begun, and he promised to deliver it to his family. Only now he couldn't. Maybe he was just being too harsh. She found it, so the securing mechanism must not have been properly set. It was his fault in a way. He still couldn't forgive her just looking through someone else's things though. If that had been a journal written by him, he would have almost definitely made mentions to his dimension hopping and Kurama. Who knows how they would have handled Alien with a demon inside of him. He'd have to think more on it when his mission was finished. The village wasn't too far away at his speed, maybe another hour or two. The sun had yet to reach its peak, so he'd been traveling for what? 4 hours. It didn't feel like it had been that long. His scroll vibrated as he pulled it out, slowing down enough to not collide with anything accidentally. The village is east-northeast from Beacon. I figured you would like to know after your sudden departure. May I inquire as to why you left? Naruto frowned as he flicked his fingers over the keyboard before turning his scroll off. He didn't need any distractions while on the mission. Thanks. Ask Yang, she can explain it. After adjusting his direction slightly more northward, taking an extra half hour to get there, Naruto arrived at what seemed to be the appropriate village. It wasn't overly big, but it didn't seem like a small one either. The streets were filled with people, surprising since the report had made it seem as though Grimm attacked every other night. He walked into the village, taking in his surroundings. He felt people giving him odd and fearful looks, obviously not happy with a stranger in town. Excuse me? He called out, stopping a young couple. They gazed at him with hesitancy. Is there a hunter staying in the village? I was sent from Beacon to aid them. They seemed to sigh in relief, pointing him all too happily at the bar across the street. Naruto gave his thanks before walking across said street and into the bar. Musty would be the best word to describe it. It wasn't exactly welcoming, but it didn't seem like such a bad place either. He joined a man at the bar, seeing as he was the only one with a weapon around. When Oz told me I'd be getting help, I didn't think he'd send a kid. The man placed his glass down. I didn't think I'd be helping a drunk. I could smell you the moment I walked in the doors. Naruto waved the bartender away. Now wasn't the time for drinking. That's funny, I don't remember being drunk. You usually don't. The man cracked a smile. Name's Crow. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto, huh? Weird name. He casually gulped his drink down before paying the bartender. Well, you seem all business. I'll show you around. Naruto nodded, following the man out of the bar. He couldn't help but notice a few people smiling, even waving in their general direction. Crow must have done some good since he has been here. I take it you're not from around these parts. Crow commented. You look at everything like you've never seen any of this before. You could say that. Naruto muttered. Here it is. Naruto looked up, seeing a small house in front of him. This is what exactly? One of the kids that were taken used to live here. Figured you'd want to ask some questions. Naruto nodded in appreciation as Crow knocked on the door. A moment later, a woman answered the door. She had a pair of fox ears attached to her head. Yes. This here is Naruto, the hunter that's helping me. He just wanted to ask you some questions, Helen. She invited them inside quickly, closing the door behind them. Naruto was soon buffeted by children. All three of them looked no older than 4, but they stared up at him in wide-eyed curiosity. He smiled, patting their heads before wiggling free to join the other two in the living room. I apologize for them. They haven't seen you before. The child's curiosity. More so since they are part fox. She stiffened at his words. No disrespect to you or them, of course. I'm not a prejudice. I actually have quite a fond attachment to foxes, so if anything they're even better than normal people. He smiled, putting the woman's fears to rest. Thank you, Naruto. I can't tell you how much you coming to help us means. Think nothing of it. He spoke. Can you tell me the last time you saw him? 3 days ago. Ash was outside with his siblings when I called them in for dinner. The other 3 came in and they said some man was talking to him. I went outside and he was gone. At first I thought he ran off with a friend, but then his friend's parents came here looking for their children as well. That's when I knew something was wrong. Alright. Naruto leaned forward. This may sound strange, but as a fox faunus, do you give off a fox-like odor? She raised an eyebrow at his question. Crow seemed interested in where he was taking this. From what I understand, faunus can sometimes exhibit certain characteristics of their animal half. I have a heightened sense of smell, and if you give off a different scent than another faunus or human, I could track him. Her eyes widened in understanding. I think. Every faunus has their own brand of pheromones, but they don't tend to be released unless the faunus is aroused. She spoke with a little embarrassment. That's okay. What can you tell me about the others that were taken? 2 other boys, around Ash's age. One was a bit bigger, short blonde hair, a lion faunus. The other one is about Ash's size, long brown hair. He is a snake Fronis. I see. Naruto pressed his hands together. He was pretty sure he knew why they were taken, now he just needed the where. Do you have any idea where they could have been taken? I'm not sure. I just don't understand how someone could take my baby from me. She cried out, sobbing softly into her hands. Naruto glanced at Crow before standing up. You've been extremely helpful, Helen. Naruto pat the woman's shoulder. I swear on my life, I will bring your son back to you if it's the last thing I do. She nodded her thanks, wiping her face with several tissues. Thank you. Naruto just smiled before Crow led him back out of the house. Once outside, the man glanced at the blonde. So what did you find out? If the White Fang have been operating in this area, it's possible they have been staging grim attacks as covers for kidnapping. The only kids they took were Fronis, young but not overly so. If I had to guess, I'd say they were taking kids to train as members from a young age. The grim attacks would make people think they were killed or eaten, so they wouldn't be looked for or reported missing. I haven't seen any White Fang since I've been here. That doesn't mean they aren't here though. Naruto stated. Ozpin said their activity in this area had gone up. With you here, they probably are scared to attack. Fighting villagers is easy, but a trained hunter? I'd be weary if my targets were now protected by someone like you. So you've heard of me? Naruto shrugged. Ozpin's been very tight-lipped on the matter. I only know that you do missions for him, but aren't a part of the school. I'm like you in that regard. Crow raised an eyebrow at that, but didn't say anything. He'd talk to Ozpin when this mission was over. That being said, I have a way to track the kids. Naruto walked towards the edge of the village, Crow following him curiously. How do you plan on doing that? I've checked everywhere within a mile of this place and found nothing. I don't like to advertise my skills, that's not how I was trained. I'd appreciate it if you didn't mention this to anyone. Naruto found a spot a little ways into the woods where he wouldn't be interrupted. He sat on the ground in a meditative pose, holding himself still. Crow didn't say a word, opting to lean against a tree and watch. The blonde didn't even look like he was breathing, almost like he died sitting there. Whatever this was, it seemed important enough to require complete concentration, so he stayed quiet. Not long after, Naruto opened his eyes. They had changed from the blue Crow saw earlier to a vivid yellow. His pupils had also changed, now looking like a horizontal bar instead a normal circle. Both were lined with an orange color that wasn't there earlier. Faunus? Crow asked. No. His words were calm. I am not a Faunus. It is a special ability I have. He closed his eyes as the orange color faded. When he reopened them, they were blue again. I found them. Crow gave him a skeptical look. You sat still for a few minutes, how exactly does that qualify as finding someone? When I use that ability, I am connected with nature. Anything in my range that is connected becomes something I can sense. He raised an arm, pointing away from the village. 2.5 miles in that direction. A few guards are with them, most likely not the main bulk of the attackers. Well, let's go. Naruto held a hand up to stop the man. One moment, I need to create clones to guard the village. You never know when an attack could occur. Before Crow could ask what he meant, 4 over Naruto's popped into existence. He didn't say anything. He'd already seen the kid apparently connect with nature, change the structure of his eye, and find 3 kids and a White Fang hideout. A few more of him didn't really seem that odd now. Guard the village. One of you dispel if there is trouble. They nodded before running back to the village. The residents were in for a shock when they saw 4 of him running around. We can leave now. Crow took off, Naruto following him easily through the trees. This kid was definitely a strange one. Surprisingly enough, they reached the hideout without incident, a small cave by the looks of it. Crow approached the opening of the cave, his eyes trying to pierce the darkness of the entrance. I suggest I lead the way. Naruto offered. I can do my best to incapacitate the guards as I find the kids. You can follow, finishing the guards and making sure none escape. Crow scratched his chin and thought. The way I see it, you're here helping me. Why not just make those copies of yourself and swarm the place? Relying on one skill only leaves you with a glaring weak spot. Figure out how to negate the skill's usefulness and you become little more than a civilian. The blonde thought back to his younger days. Lucky for him, clones and a Rasengan was all he needed to get by. Myself as well. Yes, Kurama, you are very important. He rolled his eyes at the fox. Then I'll go in first. I have the most experience here and I'll be able to react quicker to any ambush or traps. Well, normally sound logic, Naruto couldn't help but think he probably had more experience than the man. No point in arguing though when they were children that needed saving. Very well. Naruto nodded as Crow entered the cave quickly. He followed, avoiding the loose rocks on the ground if he could. Any unnecessary noise would draw the attention of the guards. It took merely a few minutes to reach the place they were being kept. 5 people in similar attire and masks were sitting around a small fire cooking something. Naruto could spot the 3 huddled together against the far wall. Crow made a motion to hold when one of the five began speaking. Stupid hunters. Beacon sent Crow as well. Our backup better arrive soon, I don't want to fight him with only 5 of us. Naruto caught Crow's gaze before silently speaking. Are the guards expendable? Crow hesitated for a moment before nodding. He thought he'd have trouble with the kid if he hadn't at least witnessed death before. At least it wasn't a problem. Naruto pulled 2 kunai out of his pouch, whipping his hand forward. The kunai sailed straight, piercing the 2 guards nearest to them in the back of the head. As they fell over, Crow emerged, locking 2 others in battle. The third began reaching for a weapon, but was stopped when he felt cold metal pressed against his neck. I wouldn't do that. Naruto held his kunai still as he looked over to the frightened trio. Witnessing death wasn't easy. It was hard for him at 12, they couldn't have been more than 8 or 9. Hopefully they would recover. Crow stabbed one of the men through his stomach with his blade, kicking him to the side. The other charged, holding a sword at his side. He swung wide, letting Crow duck underneath the swing. He raised his head quickly, smashing it into the chin of his opponent. As he fell back, dazed and in pain, Crow finished him off the way he did the man's partner. As he cleaned his blade of the blood, he looked over to the one still alive. You left him alive. Interrogation. Once he talks, I'll kill him too. The man laughed. Like I'd ever tell you anything. I'd rather die. You will. Naruto stated, like it was the simplest thing in the world. Only after you talk. His eyes turned to Crow. I suggest you take the kids out of here. Neither you or they will want to see this. Crow gave him a questioning glance before herding the young ones out of the small room and through the cave back to daylight. Naruto turned to the man with a light smile. You have one chance. Tell me everything you know, or I'll be forced to have you visit a friend of mine. Really? The faunus cackled wildly, spitting in Naruto's face. You think you can intimidate me? Naruto's smile turned more predatory as his eyes bled scarlet. Well, at least you are going to put up a fight. Crow waited outside of the cave with the kids. Honestly, he didn't know how to handle the situation. They just kept together, quietly observing him. Are you all alright? They nodded. Well, that was good. As soon as Naruto gets back, we can. He was cut off by an undignified shriek. It was faint, but he heard it. That must have been the man Naruto was going to interrogate. What made a fully grown man cry out like that though? He need not own her any longer as Naruto exited the cave. The blonde looked over at the kids. Are you 3 okay? They nodded yet again. Good. We can take you back home now. I only spoke with Helen, but I know she'll be happy to see you again. He looked at the fox Franus. The boy seemed to perk up at the mention of his mom. What did you do? Crow asked as they started walking back to the village. I introduced him to a friend of mine. That didn't really tell him anything. It could have been a weapon he named or a special tool used especially for occasions like this. It did little to narrow down the possibilities. Well, did you learn anything? Naruto frowned at that. Nothing good. Can it wait until we go back to Beacon? Crow nodded. He hated having to repeat himself too. Crow led the lion and snake Franus to their homes since Naruto did not meet their parents. He steered the quiet Ash to the house he visited not too long ago. A knock on the door later, they were standing in front of the house waiting. Ellen answered, immediately seeing Naruto standing there. Oh, Naruto. Did you need? Her voice failed her as she noticed her son standing with him. Like I promised. He smiled, patting the boy's shoulder. Go on. He pushed the boy gently. Ash ran up to his mother, hugging her tightly. Ash. She cried, holding the boy like her life depended on it. Oh, I'm so glad you're home. Tears flooded from her eyes as she looked up at Naruto. Thank you. It was no problem. He smiled at the pair. I have to head back to Beacon now, but I'll be sure to visit if I'm ever in the area. The woman nodded. Naruto left quickly, keeping his emotions inside. He was glad the pair was reunited, but he couldn't help but feel sad. Never had he experienced anything like that. A motherly embrace. He shook his head to clear his thoughts. HR hadn't thought about it much before, but seeing it made the emotions well up. You really are going soft. Oh, shut it. Like you wouldn't cry if the sage of the 6 paths just reappeared and gave you a hug. I am far above something like shedding tears. If this is your attempt at trying to get me to act more human, I no longer wish to speak. Kurama cut off the connection as Naruto chuckled. Damn fox was too easy to mess with. Hey kid. Crow called out. Naruto stopped walking, realizing he was just letting his feet take him wherever they pleased. Yes. Are you finished here? My mission is complete. I'll take that as a yes. We should head back to Beacon now. Oz needs to hear whatever you found out from that guy. Very well. Naruto took one last look at the village before both him and Crow began walking towards Beacon. Let's go. The journey back was quite a bit longer than the one to the village, taking almost a day. Crow didn't quite have Naruto's level of speed, so the blonde was forced to travel at a slower pace. He didn't mind though. It gave him time to think about what happened with Yang. They approaches the academy, Crow taking a swig from his flask. How long have you been here, Naruto? Naruto didn't look over at the man as he answered. Almost 2 weeks. So were you already a hunter when you joined or something? You could say that. Naruto spoke. Crow glanced at the blonde. Before he could ask his next question, he heard a shrill voice cry out of nowhere. Uncle Crow. An excited Ruby jumped and latched herself onto the man. I didn't know you were coming. I didn't either. He smiled at the girl. I finished up my mission early thanks to Naruto. Ruby froze, turning to see the blonde standing beside her uncle. Hi. She smiled weakly. Hello Ruby. Naruto greeted her. Ruby sighed in relief. It seemed Yang was right about him not hating all of them. You know each other? Crow asked. Ruby blushed as she let go of the man's arm. He stared curiously at her reaction. Yeah, we kind of brought him to Beacon. Is that so? The man drawled out. Maybe you can tell me about it later kid, we gotta meet with Oz. He put a hand of her head before leaving her standing there with Naruto. You went on a mission with Uncle Crow. I was sent as backup yes. I'll see you later Ruby. He swiftly followed after Crow, leaving the girl alone. She soon headed back to her room with the news. Yang. Ruby called out as she burst into the dorm room. Uncle Crow is here. The girl sat up in her bed at the mention of the man. He is? Ruby nodded excitedly. Yeah. I saw him in front of the school with Naruto. They were going to see Ozpin about their last mission, but I think he'll come by after that. Yang's face fell at the mention of Naruto. Sounds fun. She laid back on her bed. Ruby sighed. Yang, come on. You can't keep acting like this. The girl refused to respond, only serving to make Ruby sigh again. When Uncle Crow got here, he could meet the rest of her team. Maybe he could cheer Yang up too. What if Naruto gets imprisoned in RWBY? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.